Hello, 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 and welcome to the Bada Show. I am one of your hosts, Dave, and down there in the corner is my buddy, my partner in crime over here, Chris. Chris, how are you?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? How you doing,
I'm
Dave?
fantastic. I just celebrated an awesome milestone, my birthday.
I was about to say, this is your birthday week. How did it go? What'd you do?
Uh, I just shrugged. I'm like, once you reach a certain age, birthdays don't have that same allure like when you were a kid and imagining
Yeah.
all the amazing toys that you're going to
The
get.
trip to Toys R Us?
But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, thanks to some great friends I have, toys were still to be had. And I definitely had a secret admirer out there, and his name was you. And you sent me this
Me.
truly dope Eradicator figure because you're a listener on this program. When we
I
talked
am a
when we
listener.
talked about plastic, I was like, "Oh, this figure, it's too expensive for me. It's quite elusive." And then what shows up at my front door? That figure.
Bada bing.
Yeah, there you go.
Mm-hmm.
So that and my buddy Beto hooked me up with that cool labyrinth Jareth Funko Pop that I had brought up
Yeah.
on the episode before. My brother sent me a labyrinth
I
lunchbox.
see that. What is that? Oh, very cool. Very
Yeah,
cool. I see Bowie there. I just didn't know what it was.
yeah.
My eyes suck. So
Well,
yes.
we'll get into that in a little bit.
We'll get into that
But I
later.
mean,
Yeah.
sticking with the theme of old age, since I don't really have to pack a lunch anymore, I'll probably put prescription medications in that
Of course.
in that lunchbox. But hey, man, I can't complain. I had a nice day with the family yesterday. We went to a beach to do some swimming. First time we went to the lake,
Nice.
it was flooded, which was a little alarming and confusing
Mm-hmm.
because the water was so far up under the beach, like trash cans were submerged. And
Oh,
oh
Lordy.
yeah, yeah, and like the light fixtures were deep into the water, and my wife's like, "You can't swim in there. It's full of
Yeah,
trash.
you're gonna get
You're gonna get
shocked
yeah,
and
yeah, you're gonna
garbage.
get electrocuted." And I'm like, there's so many amoebas and weird, I don't know, parasites probably swimming around in there. Got to take a chance.
Yeah. The leeches will
There
take
you go.
it.
I've
Yeah.
made it this far. What's gonna kill me now? Look out for falling pianos. But
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, it's been great. And then last week I celebrated with an awesome hunt. So I do have
Mm-hmm.
to push this real quick. If you're not on Instagram following the Bada Bin Show, you're missing out. I did some live streams from there, which was kind of cool, and just kind of see what I was hunting for and what I was digging at, and definitely recommend following us on there. And if you ever want to reach out to us, badabinshow@gmail.com. But enough about me
Mm-hmm.
and my plugs. Let's talk about you and
Mm-hmm.
I guess some eyesore that you've been dealing with, huh?
Yeah. I was going to say I don't have any plugs, so
Well, yeah, it's all natural.
um, but yes, my eyes suck
Yeah.
is kind of the gimmick here. My eyes have sucked for many years, probably about 40
Mm-hmm.
years. But over the past month or so, it's gotten to the point where it is very, very difficult to do most things that I like to do. So reading is hard. Um, it's like I'm looking at Dave here. I can see like a Dave shape. I can make out some facial features, but I also know that our names are on the screen. I can't see
Oh
that.
man.
That's just a mess.
Eesh.
Um, and it's gotten very, very difficult. Um, really drove the point home that I was hard of sight this past weekend because, on advice from my shrink, I was told to do some stuff for fun. Um, I don't do a whole heck of a lot, period, but I certainly don't do much to relax. And we're trying to attack some sort of anxiety and stress issues. So she's like, you need to relearn how to relax. You need to. She said it's a skill.
Sure.
It's not something you can just do. And for me, it looks like anybody who's able to like just sit down and watch a show, go to a sporting event. I look at them and like, how easy is it for them to do those things? Because I can't do anything like that. Of course, that's all projection. I don't know these people. I don't know anything about anybody. I just see what I see,
Sure.
and that isn't much. Um, so I was told, do the stuff you used to like to do. And it's like, well, I kind of broke comic books. Comic books have been my lifelong passion, but since I turned it into a transformational hobby where like I have to immediately write or talk or do whatever, I have to transform it. It has to be a multitasker.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I kind of broke the the heart of the hobby for me, which was reading and enjoying and loving. Became hard to impossible to do something like that. And it's weird, and I can totally appreciate how silly it is for a grown man to complain that his shrink told him to read comics and play video games. Uh,
Yeah.
I know it's an enviable position. It's just one that I'm too stupid and dense to actually appreciate or show gratitude for. Um, so I set to reading something this weekend, and it's something I've been putting off, not consciously. It's just something that it's like, I should get to that one day. And it was never like oh man, I'm dreading reading that. It's just like, I'll get to it. I'll get to it. And that book was Doomsday Clock, which, I mean, I was reading like the first maybe 4 or 5 issues as it was coming out. Um, and then I got to one where like I opened it and I'm like, where the hell were we? Because that book had a lot of delays. Some say that book is still not done coming out. And it just took forever. So like there were like 4, 5, 6 month breaks between some of those issues. So you get one, you're all excited to read it, and you're like, I have no idea where we were. So then they just piled up. I kept buying them, and it's like, okay, when it's done, I'll read it all in one go. Then I didn't because I don't know how to read things for fun anymore. And so this past week, we're building we're doing stuff in the garage. We're putting up a wall, putting a room in there for my long boxes. We're gonna climate control it, all that kind of gimmick.
Right.
Um, so my comics are pretty much everywhere right now. So it's like I have this great idea. I'm gonna read Doomsday Clock finally, but where the hell is Doomsday Clock? Which room is it in? Which box is it in? I have no friggin' idea. So I went out and I found a pre-owned trade for like I think it was $15. It's like a $50 trade. Who knew? I had no idea that trades were that expensive new. But I got $15. Got home and did went to town reading it. And what I did was gave myself a tremendous headache because I was trying to explain this on NML Crossing, but that's audio only. Um, I'm reading with my glasses down at the bridge of my nose like this, and as I'm reading, I'm like moving them one like almost touching my eyeball, and the other one out a bit, just to make out these words. And then when I would focus on the words, the background images would go fuzzy. And then when I would look at the images, the words would go fuzzy. It's just this awful, awful thing, and made the entire experience not that great. That's not to say I didn't enjoy the book. I did enjoy the book. I thought it was a fantastic book. And it almost broke new books for me. I don't know if you, we haven't talked about Doomsday Clock, you and I. And it is I guess it's as close to a seminal story as we get nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I had to refresh myself on some names from Watchmen because it's been 20, 25 years since I read Watchmen. But the story overall, I thought it was really well done. It felt concrete, it felt real.
Right.
It's one of the very few books that actually feels real. Yeah, I think I mentioned this on Animal Crossing. Like Billy Joel's Allentown was playing in my head as I'm reading this, because that's all about like what's real in the ground, and everything else is kind of fake, and your mind is just filled with ephemeral crap. Doomsday Clock felt real,
Right.
and it kind of like broke current year comics for me.
I
But
think you mentioned too, you felt like it mattered, which
it
is a
did.
big deal
It
nowadays. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because so little
Right.
does. So little does, like nothing
Mm-hmm.
does. Um, and it carries with it such a pedigree that it's going to be hard to contradict it, because people are going to try, because people try to contradict everything
Sure.
in comics, because it's like, well, that doesn't fit, not on my watch. That doesn't fit into my narrative, so they try to change it. This this was basically etched in concrete, as close to concrete as comics can get. So I like that it feels like something we can actually hold on to as being real for now.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, we can talk more about that later. My eyes really fatigued after reading probably the first or second chapter of Doomsday Clock, and I pressed through. I kept going, and the next day it was spots everywhere. It was just blinding
Ay,
headache.
caramba.
Um, a darkened room. I have a pair of prescription sunglasses from like 10 years ago. I'm wearing those because it's like I can't have any light. It was awful. It
Well,
was awful.
I'm glad you enjoyed it since you suffered so much to do so. I mean,
True,
geez
true.
Louise, it's what a labor of love that
Yeah.
turned out to be, huh?
But it sucked. But I had an eye doctor's appointment yesterday
Mm,
morning and tried contacts and got new prescriptions. So that'll be coming in a couple of weeks.
good.
So hopefully this will be some relief. The contacts are kind of a band-aid situation because the contacts are only for distance. So I can put those in and then a pair of cheap readers I can read. But it's like at the expense of everything
Right.
else in my life. Like I was driving home with the contacts in yesterday,
Uh-huh.
and I could see the driving was safe. I could see far away. I could see the cars in front of me. If I wanted to change the station on the radio, good luck. I couldn't see anything on the
Oh, that's
dash
safe.
because I mean it's safe enough. Um, but I mean I could see everything around me. It's just
Uh-huh.
in the car, blur. Um, so if I want to actually read using that method, it's got to be a commitment
Yeah.
to okay, I'm sitting my ass on this couch for the next 8 hours and I'm only going to read. I'm not going to get up. I'm not going to cook nothing. I'm not going to go out. It's just this is where I'm going to be. So it's just another layer in the crab sandwich that is my inability to read.
Holy moly, man. It's like the therapist says, hey, let's get back to things you enjoy, but the equivalent of that is almost like putting hot coals down your pants because you're going to be in
Yeah.
so much torment and pain during and
Oh
after.
goodness.
Because
Yeah.
and here's the other thing too, it's not that it wasn't, because we've talked off air before about
Mhm.
lettering and how like certain colors
Sure.
can be a little aggravating in specific comics, and they're not really
Hmm.
thinking about how the clarity issues would be.
Readability.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Doomsday Clock, I don't think that was the case here. It's just that you are
My eyes
yeah, the
suck.
Mr.
Yeah.
Magoo syndrome.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah, and I mentioned this on NML
Hmm.
either yesterday or today. Um, I found a distinct difference between Marvel and DC's current output in as far as not quality but
Yeah.
readability. Um, when I was doing X Lapsed, I was reading every X-Men book, and it was like face in the page to make these words out because I don't know if it's just Marvel's coloring, the lettering, the juxtaposition of the two. It just made it very difficult for me. Zarsky's Daredevil, another one, pressing my face into it. And I enjoyed the story, but it was
Hmm.
like, at what expense? And then I pick up the first issue of the Dawn of DC Superman, the Williamson run, and I'm able to hold it and read it. And it's like, holy cow, what's
Yeah.
different about DC that I'm able to actually make out words? Um, Again, coloring, lettering, who knows? The paper stock, because DC isn't as glossy as Marvel. Not sure, but that too has deteriorated. So this is like a year ago. I'm able to read DC just okay,
Hmm.
and now it's like I can't read anything. Okay, so
Well, be careful this
who knows?
summer in particular, because you may think that you're on the
Mhm.
diving board at the pool, but you're really on like a steel beam in a building that's being constructed, because you can't tell the
Mhm. Mhm.
difference.
Well, I mean, it's okay because sometimes my own personal doomsday clock is like here, so
Uh
or here,
huh.
I guess. So it doesn't matter where I'm at. So we'll see.
So
We'll
we're
see.
not going
But
to take a full dive into Doomsday Clock, I don't think, unless you want
no,
to.
no,
But I
no.
will
I
say,
mean, we could talk about bits of it later or
sure.
whenever, another time.
One
Yeah.
comment I'd like to make upon it is that okay, so anytime there's a sequel or prequel, anything related to something that's beloved material,
Sure.
you often wonder why. There's nothing wrong with what
Mhm.
we got, but when that source is treated with respect,
Oh
it's
yeah.
always to be appreciated. And I definitely think um, when you first hear, okay, the Watchmen universe, which was basically supposed to be the Charlton Heroes
Hmm.
when Alan Moore had conceived it, but they said no, we're integrating them into the DC universe.
Yeah.
To finally have those characters, now the Watchmen characters, integrated in the DCU, I think it was handled extremely well
Oh
by
yeah.
Jeff Johns. So what I was
Hmm.
trying to get at,
Hmm.
once you hear it, the initial announcement, you're weary. You're like, oh, why?
Oh yeah. What are they gonna do to it?
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then
Hmm.
once you actually get the real material in your hands, no matter how long it takes, because it did take a
Hmm.
long
Hmm.
time, um,
It did.
you appreciate it for you know respecting
Oh yeah.
the blocks it was built
And
on.
and it's so weird that like usually when they announce stuff like that, I'm automatically knee jerk cynicism,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
But when we read Rebirth back in 2016, and that last page where Batman has that button, that iconic button, it's like, ooh,
Mm.
like I'm sure a lot of people out there were like, oh crap, but I was just like, whoa, okay, possibilities, opportunities, what's going to happen here? I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait.
Well,
So it was optimism. It was uncharacteristic optimism.
yeah, sure. And actually, that's a great lead in to something we're going to talk about, which is the new takes on old capes. We'll put it that way.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
whether
Hmm.
there's a character that has been around for decades, or maybe even something that might be a little bit more fresher, but you realize you need to do something different with it. I want
Hmm.
to kind of get into your feelings on that because,
Okay.
yet again, as I spoke on with Watchmen, where there is so much respect for that original story, you got to be careful about what you do
Sure.
with it. You got other characters, serialized characters that, geez, if you don't try something different, all you keep doing is retreading the same old
Of
shtick.
course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
First
Hmm.
character, of course, that pops to mind is Superman. And
Hmm.
there can be some resistance to that too because a lot of fans just like that simple recipe, right? We don't
Hmm.
need new Coke. There's nothing wrong with
Sure.
regular Coke, you know? So when that should happen, how do you feel about it? If you don't like it, are there exceptions to that? Do you know what I mean? You said knee
Sure.
jerk reactions. Sometimes you hear something's about to change, you just completely avoid it.
Oh
What's your
yeah.
stance on kind of like putting a little twist on something old and giving it a little new polish?
I like when they do it.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it doesn't work out, I appreciate it as part of the history of a character,
Sure.
just the evolution of a character. Unfortunately, with the way things are now with the fandom,
Mm-hmm.
it's harder to do that because everything is hyperbolic now. Like, could you imagine if they did Electric Blue Superman now?
Okay.
People are like, "Oh, DC's dead. DC's dead. Oh, this is garbage." And it's like, no, this is a story.
Uh-huh.
Do you really think he's going to be in this goofy looking suit for the rest of time?
Right.
Of course not. Of course not. He's going to be back in his classic costume before you know it. This is a story. Enjoy it or don't, but understand that it's a story. Even back in the day, I mean, it came, what was Electric Blue? It was like 96, 97, 98 ish.
Mm-hmm.
There was an internet, it wasn't as friggin' ridiculous and awful as it is now,
Right.
but there was an internet and people were against it. Um, but now I think it would just be so much worse, especially with how close we are to the creators and to the bean counters, and everything kind of changes. People test the wind. They lick their finger and put it up, and okay, well that's not going to work,
Mm-hmm.
so kill it. It's very difficult to take chances nowadays because everything is just so hyperbolic.
Do you think some of the negativity comes from people being afraid that if it does work, it will stick around? So basically, if it sells,
Hmm.
like you said, Electric Blue Superman, everybody knows that cannot stay.
Yeah.
But hey, man, we're selling more copies now with him as Blue. We're gonna keep it going for
Hmm.
another 6 months, 12 months, whatever.
Why not?
You know.
Why
But
not?
then,
Because that clearly means people are buying
right?
it.
But then some of the negativity or some of the negative attitudes that may be
Hmm.
coming out in social media are like, I don't want this. So the more I can spread this out there that this is bad before we even see it,
Hmm. Sure.
is to kind of like put the kibosh on that before it even hits the stands. Like, who's gonna buy it if we just all crapped on it for the last 2 months?
That's true. That's true. The I guess the good thing is you couldn't take two comic fans and get them to agree on how to make a pitcher of Kool-Aid. You know,
Right? Yeah.
so
Okay.
it's and comic fans will do whatever they can to get into the good graces of a creator.
Mm, also true.
So it's like, I'm not going to buy this. Well, I'll buy three
Yeah.
copies. Please give me a
Yeah. So
like,
I'll make up
whoever's
for it.
writing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah. I
Yeah,
follow you.
yeah.
Well, I mean,
But it's difficult now. I think because everybody does have a voice and everybody wants their voice to be the loudest.
hmm
And as we talked about with reviews here, the six, seven, and eights, those aren't loud voices anymore. Those are the middle of the road. Who cares? The zeros and the tens, or the zeros and the 12s out of 10. Those are the ones people listen to. Those are the ones that are loudest because those are the ones that are most bombastic and sensational.
I'm not really big on social media anymore. Not that I was to begin with.
Mm,
But something that I
same.
always found interesting was when someone disagreed with an opinion,
Hmm.
they would share that thing that they didn't like and then add a little comment. Like, so I'm like, you're
Yep.
amplifying it.
Yeah, you're quoting it.
Yeah,
Come on.
exactly. Quoting it and then reposting it. And so it's getting even
Hmm.
more eyes on it. And I always found that a
Sure.
little bizarre. I'm like, oh, geez,
Hmm.
can you believe how crazy this guy is? And well, all
Hmm.
right, if you think he's nuts,
And,
leave it to his page or his account. You
and
know?
here's a question here. We'll zero in on comics because that's what we do
Sure.
here. Has anybody ever disagreed with whether it was passive disagreement, like just somebody said something you disagreed with,
Hmm.
or maybe a back and forth where you're actually disagreeing with someone in real time? Has anybody ever changed your mind on a comics thing on the? Of course not. Of course
No,
not.
immediately I'm like no, but there I did have a conversation with a very good friend of mine about variance one time, and I softened a little bit on that. I mean, I still have
Hmm.
very specific and strong opinions on variance, but it
Hmm.
gave me a little bit more wiggle room. Um,
Hmm.
so it's like kind of having a crack in the sidewalk. Like, yeah, there was a little understanding there, but yeah, I mean, anytime
Well, understanding and agreeing are different
okay, true. All
things.
right. But I mean, as far as like discourse you see online, I've never seen someone say oops or uh-oh.
Yeah, you convinced me.
Yes, I'm changing my mind now. Thanks for that,
Hmm.
pal.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, Commissioner Gordon as Batman was a bad idea or a great
Funny
idea.
you should bring that up because I like that.
Hmm.
I enjoyed that whole
Yeah, I didn't
super
mind
heavy
it.
stuff. See, I,
Yeah,
I I thought it was fantastic. You didn't mind it.
yeah. I mean, I think at that point the Snyder run had been long in the tooth for me,
Hmm.
and it was about like, okay, we need a different voice here. As much as I enjoyed most of the Snyder run, it was just like, okay, we need another voice because this is feeling
Yeah,
stale.
and it was definitely mixing
And the
things
Gordon
up.
thing was, and the Gordon thing was a shot in the arm for sure.
Hmm. And I thought it was kind of a natural thing for it to happen.
Hmm.
To kind of make Batman the tool of a corporation, and who better to pilot that than James
Hmm.
Gordon?
One of his closest allies.
Yeah, I thought that was fairly brilliant. But I mean, even then,
Is that still in continuity?
as far as I know, yes.
Okay.
I actually have yet again terrible for YouTubing. I have the figure over here of James Gordon as Batman, but I'm not going to get up and
Wow.
pluck it down to show anybody. You guys can Google it. But as far as other characters that I found interesting that they kind of did a little different take on, my first exposure to one of my all-time favorite characters, Swamp Thing,
Hmm.
was in outer space.
Hmm.
Swamp Thing, Earth-based. His name's Swamp Thing, for Christ's sakes. What is
Sure.
he doing in outer space? But I was fascinated by that. I thought that was really cool. And being a little kid at the time, to pick up that first issue of Swamp Thing and go, hey, wait, something's not jiving here. How does this, make any
Hmm.
sense? I was fascinated by it. I thought it was yet again brilliant, to overuse the term. And then around that same age, Superman was boring. I did
Hmm.
not dig Superman at all. I mean, that was the if we're talking.
What year was it? What year was that?
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I was going to say it was like the late '80s, early
Hmm.
'90s.
Okay. Okay.
So for me, he's overpowered. What can he do? It's the age of
Hmm.
anti-heroes, right? That's what young
Sure.
guys or kids were into. Yeah, you
Hmm.
Wolverines, your Punishers, your Lobos.
Sure.
Um,
Lobo. Sure.
Superman is just so boring. So I picked up this issue of, I believe it was Action at the time, and
Hmm.
he's wearing like my grandmother's doily for her candy dish, and he looks really funky. What's going on? This ain't the Superman I know. And it is Krypton Man.
Okay.
I thought that was awesome because I was like, "Hey man, what's up with Superman? He's being a dick. He's like
Hmm.
he's thrashing things. He's being really cool and kind of, yeah, anti-hero esque." So that really caught my
Hmm.
attention. I mean, I remember picking up that book and walking home, and much like you with your eyesight, my face was buried in the damn thing the whole
There you
way.
go.
I was like, this is great. And otherwise, would I have picked up that Superman book? No. You know?
Nope.
I hate just to relate it to my childhood, but those are specific instances where I can say
For sure.
they turned me on to something that I was
Hmm.
normally not captivated by when it came to comics. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Now, how
Sure.
about you? Are there any characters that kind of took a little different turn that you were just like, "Wow, this is amazing. I love what they did with this."
Um, I'm trying to think because usually it goes the other way.
Mm,
Where and again, I'm an addict, so I'm never going to be the one who says I'm never buying this anymore because I'm an
right.
idiot, and I always do. So I mean, the X-Men have changed. How many? It's funny. Maybe it's not funny, but I say it's funny all the time.
Right.
Um, in a recent episode of NML Crossing, there was a letter in an issue of Azrael where the letter writer, the letter hack, was trying to curry favor with the editor or whoever, and it's like they were talking about Azrael's new costume,
Mm-hmm.
which happened during No Man's Land. He went from the Joe Quesada one to this weird head sock, looks like an Image character basically with a cape.
Mm-hmm.
And this letter writer's like, comic fans are always afraid of change, and it's like, could you shut the f up? We've been collecting comics for 30 plus
Yeah.
years. Has there ever been a time where comics weren't changing? No. Comics, every title has changed. Every title's been canceled and rebooted. Every character's been replaced and rebooted
Mm-hmm.
and recostumed and reorigined. That's just comics. So can we take the talking point of comic fans are afraid of change, but they demand it? Could we like put that in the friggin' ground?
Yeah.
Because it's bullshit.
Yeah.
It's garbage. I hate that. So what was I talking about? Yes, changes. The X-Men have changed all the time.
Yeah.
There were some takes that I like, some takes that I don't. The Morrison X-Men I absolutely adored because it felt like a natural progression of what came before without chopping down everything that came before. Nowadays, it's more the latter, where changes are made basically to make statements and to tear down what came before. And they happen all at once. So none of the changes get adequate room to breathe. During the Marvel, whatever came before Marvel Legacy, maybe like the third or fourth attempt at Marvel Now, I don't know. They replaced pretty much all the heroes. Steve Rogers wasn't Cap anymore. It was the Falcon. Was Cap, Sam? What's his name?
Sam Wilson.
There he
Yeah.
is, Sam Wilson. Jane Foster was Thor. Miles was pretty much the Spider-Man at that point because Peter Parker was basically Iron Man at that point.
Mm-hmm.
They were Amadeus Cho was the Hulk. They were replacing all these characters all at once, and it made it so none of them actually mattered because it was just like none of these stories had room to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just these changes and changes and changes. And I know there's like a social element to it, and we're not going to get into that because that really doesn't matter. I think every character has a story. It's just whether or not it gets explored. The Jane Foster's Thor thing, not to overuse a word, brilliant. Brilliant. When she turned into Thor, she's in remission for cancer. That's a great story.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it was buried under everything else. It just became another re-look or a reimagining of a character or just another take on a character that just disappeared into the ether because there was just so much upheaval and change. And now it's hard to look at any sort of change without seeing it as a gimmick first, a sales ploy second, and a story eighth or ninth.
Yeah. That's it. You hit the nail on the head. It's like when it's something
Mm,
natural,
yeah.
fluid, and it's just it
Hmm.
makes sense for that to happen. It's a beautiful thing. But yet
Sure.
again, most of it is in fact, oh well, let's do this because it's gonna get a headline on or a little part of the cryon on CNN or
Sure.
something. You know what I mean? And people
Or
might
yeah,
pick it up.
USA Today will slum it in comics for a
Yeah,
day. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
And as far as the comics fans being afraid of change, my first thought when you said that, which by the way was a great little impersonation of the random, I still live in the basement comics fan.
There he
Uh,
is.
Think about the Silver Age, with DC
Hmm.
and how they really put a new shine on those characters. The Flash, of course,
Uh-huh.
being the big even showcase.
The first one, yeah.
Green Lantern, on and on, or at the
Hmm.
same era in the Silver Age, Marvel just coming out of nowhere and blowing people's
That was the
minds.
Marvel Age. Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely.
So those are a lot of changes that happened an
Hmm.
excellent time.
And they've never stopped.
Um, Sticking with Marvel, another character I thought was, I don't know how you feel about this, so I'm interested in it,
Hmm.
but I was very, very taken when they did Frank Castle as the War Machine. I thought that
When was
this
this?
was probably this Matthew Rosenberg was writing it. I want to say it was like 6 years ago now, or
Okay. I
um,
don't remember that. I was probably out at
oh,
that
okay. I
point.
thought it was super cool, man. I mean, that's one of the.
It sounds
It kind
cool.
of like brought the kid who loves comics back
Hmm.
out of me. I'm like, wow, that just makes a lot of sense. Why wouldn't you put
It sounds
Frank
cool.
Castle in the War Machine
In
armor?
armor. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
that was really neat. But saying all this, can you think of off the top of your head? And I guess this kind of works as our
Hmm.
impromptu question. Any changes that really, really rubbed you the wrong way? Dead air.
Not
Dead air
really.
sound.
Not
Crickets. Yeah,
really.
okay.
Yeah, not really. I mean, because we've been in this hobby and this
Mm,
game long enough to know that nothing's permanent.
yeah.
So why not? If you love the X-Men or if you love Superman, and suddenly he's wearing blue pajamas, these weird. He looks like a popsicle. You love Superman. You loved him for years. Is that going to make you stop? And if so, how much do you really love the character?
Well, you know my story of the Hulk, and I've loved the Hulk for such a
Hmm.
long time, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, so I don't want to get too far out on it. But
Hmm.
I had been collecting the Hulk for decades, and then when they started coming out with the Hulk of every color, of every variety, I mean,
Hmm.
even later they had like Hercules took over his book, but
Oh, the Incredible Herc. Yeah.
yeah, but it came a point in my life where I'm like, I'm spending money on this. I'm not
Hmm.
enjoying it.
Hmm.
How can I send a message that you guys are like destroying this for me? You know what I mean? Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong. Other people may be loving it, but for me,
Sure. Sure.
and so I took it off my pole. I took the Incredible
Hmm.
Hulk off my pole after collecting like every issue from like 1988 or what have you.
Sure.
And dude, I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep.
Oh yeah.
I was tossing and turning. I'm like, what have I done? This is the biggest mistake of my
Hmm.
life. I mean, I was beside myself, completely distraught
Hmm.
because I had just canceled the Hulk, you know?
Uh-huh.
So there you go. You said, what kind of fan does that make people who don't stick around?
Well, I
Huh?
mean, maybe a healthier one, maybe a healthier
It,
one. But
it did.
you what you did, you actually did it.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't just go on Twitter or whatever the hell we're calling it now and be like, I'm never reading the Hulk again and
Right.
then buying it.
Yeah.
That's all bark no bite.
No, that was definitely I cannot keep going with this
That's
vision,
healthy.
this creative team. You know what
Sure.
I mean? And
Sure. I did the same thing with the X-Men
okay, and
back in 2015,
and to
2016.
rebound on what you just said about it being healthy was it ultimately it really was because it
Hmm.
taught me a valuable lesson. I can say no. I can stop when I
Yeah,
want to
it's
stop.
true.
It's not an addiction like a drug addiction where you're hooked and you're homeless and you're stealing from
You're
people.
itching and
Yeah, you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like
Hmm.
I can say enough's enough and I can shut my wallet, move on, and
Hmm.
I will come back when the time and the situation is right. But
Hmm.
I did not probably adequately describe in detail. I did mention not eating, not sleeping, but
Oh yeah.
I had been. I don't know if I've ever been more upset in my life. And I'm talking people.
Oh,
People in my life have
it's
died. You know what I mean? And I was just could not get over the fact that the Hulk was
well, I mean,
that bad.
it's morning. It's still morning.
Mm,
Morning is morning.
yeah.
I remember the first DCBS box I got
Mm-hmm.
without X-Men in it,
Yeah.
and I could have thrown up.
Yeah.
I could have thrown up
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, because I'm thinking like, okay, because I mean, the X-Men is a family of books. There's like 6 to 12 of them a month.
Right.
So I'm sitting there with this box, and I'm like, there are 6 to 12 comics with X in it that I don't own, that other people have read, that I don't have in my house right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it was shaky. It was like the DTs or whatever. It was just like, oh, what do it's you're freaking out.
Yeah. Now, how about when you went
Yeah.
back? How did you feel when it felt safe enough? You're like, hey, this is like a team, a storyline. I'm interested in enough to go back and give it a shot.
I went back to do X Lapsed.
Mm-hmm.
So it was I heard it was a drastic new take. It was. Um, and it was like, okay, well, it's funny. We're gonna talk more about this later when we get to the emails. But
Mm-hmm.
every time we read something like with the multi Hulks, right? The A bombs and the whatever, we think to ourselves, man, this isn't good, but at least it can't get worse than this,
Wrong.
And then a year later, and you're like, oof, okay, it did,
Yeah.
but at least it can't get worse than this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it was with the X-Men with me. It's like okay, 2015, 2016, they were doing the gold, the blue, the black, the red,
Mm-hmm.
all those like weird teams. Here it was like lip service to fandom, the longtime fans, but totally destroying everything that came before. And it's like, well, this is bad, but at least it can't get worse. Well, it got better, but then it kind of went back down
Yeah.
again. But we'll talk more about that in the
Well,
emails.
I asked because I remember specifically when the Hulk took a turn that I enjoyed. It was like,
The Duggan
yeah,
stuff.
dude, it was like you'd seen a
Hmm.
movie, me slow mo running through a field to embrace my lover. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
we're
All the
back,
pigeons flying out. Yeah.
dude. We're back. Like this is the way it was always supposed to be. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's some fans out there who loved the multicolored A bombs and everything else, and Jeff
Hmm.
Loeb's Hulk, and you know it.
I like the Ed McGuinness
Yeah,
art.
who didn't? He was fantastic, and it wasn't all bad. It was just like it felt to me at the time. It was just getting out of control. A flavor of the
Hmm.
month is like
Well,
going to Baskin Robbins, starring the Hulk.
oh yeah, and it felt like a proto attempt at the diversification of every character. It's like, okay, now we have a Hulkiverse, and
Yeah,
it's like
I wasn't gonna
it
say
was
it.
like a trial run for all that
I wasn't
garbage.
gonna say it because I know how much you hate that
Hmm.
term, but you just
Oh, I
you took
do,
it away there,
I do.
pal. But you're right.
It's up there. It might be up there with floppy at this point.
Oh,
It's bad because it's so cheap, it's so lazy, and it takes
eh.
no creativity. It takes
You notice
none.
I've never said that word on this show. Where it's 7 episodes in.
Oh, the F word?
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, it hurts to say it. It,
won't
it.
do
it
it.
comes up with bile. Yeah, it comes up with
Will
bile.
not do it. I know on
Hmm.
NML Crossing, you've talked in
Hmm.
like your mailbag about like terminology and stuff.
Oh
And
yeah,
listening to
yeah.
those episodes, when you say the F word, it just
Hmm. Hmm.
invokes this disgust from me.
Oh,
I can't say it.
it's
I don't know where
just
it came
it's
from.
so it's so disrespectful and dismissive of the building blocks of this entire hobby and industry.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's like when you're in the bookstore and it's like, hey, do you want to look at the comics? No, I hate comics. I only read graphic novels.
Right.
It's like, get the hell out of here.
Now, before we get off the topic of new takes on capes,
Yes.
I brought up a few I enjoyed. You brought up the X Men.
Hmm.
Nothing really stuck out to you as something you just couldn't fully get behind, knowing that it
No,
would
I mean
eventually
everything is,
revert.
yeah, of course.
But
Everything always does.
all this being said, if you could take character, team, whatever,
Hmm.
right now, you think it needs a new spin, some radical, ideas injected into it. What franchise, what title, what would it be?
Um, it'd probably be the X
Oh,
books, even though they are about to get a new coat of paint.
okay.
I saw a little bit of the coat of paint and wasn't a fan of it.
Okay.
Um, I think there's a. I feel like the comics industry tends to overcorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Just like that's it's human nature to overcorrect. Something isn't going the way you want it to, you pivot all the way the other way. Um, I feel like the new X-Men stuff is like they see that there's popularity with that X-Men 97 stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
It's like, oh, well, we need to evoke that sort of a feel. At least that's the impression I'm getting. I could be completely wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. But it feels like such an overcorrection back to traditional, pseudo traditional X-Men, where I think it's going to be a little bit too jarring. And I think it's going to not do any favors for this current era, which, while I might not be a fan of it, I want it to succeed
Mm-hmm.
because I love the X Men. And I've seen, we've been through 15 years of Marvel burying the X-Men because they didn't have the movie rights, which was heartbreaking. I want to see the books succeed. I want to see the creators succeed. Um, I want these books to be around in 5, 10 years. Um, but I feel like the direction it looks like they're going is going to serve nobody.
Okay.
It's just like when they finished up with the reds and the gold and the blue and gold and then the red and the black or whatever they did back in 2015 or so. They went to this very weird well. It was Uncanny X Men. It was like a weekly book for the first 10 issues and had a cavalcade of creators on it, and it just felt too much like they were trying really hard to undo what they had done. And I mean that's a comics thing.
So, all right. So me thinking when you respond to the X-Men,
Hmm.
you're given control. What
Hmm.
would you do? Streamline it, bring it down to one book, make it these core characters. What would be, cuz I mean, we're talking kind of like fairly
Hmm.
radical changes here. It's not just, oh yeah,
Hmm.
we're switching creative team. I mean, when we talked about
Sure.
Swamp Thing, he's in outer space. That's a completely different environment.
Sure.
Krypton Man, he's basically a different character. He's influenced by the
Hmm.
Eradicator. And
Of course.
so, what change do you think would be necessary if Chris was the ex editor?
I think you need to pare it down
Mm-hmm.
because they're launching 9 damn books.
Okay.
9 books. That's a lot of damn books at $4 to $5 each.
Mm.
It's a lot of damn books. You need to pare it down. You need to make one of the things that was most appealing to me early in my comics collecting was the feeling of prestige among the teams. It felt like a big deal when someone was made an Avenger, or like when Cannonball was promoted from X Force to the X Men team. It was like, woo, okay, that feels
Right.
cool. You get like there's a hierarchy. There's prestige to it. When someone gets added to the Justice League, it's a big deal. You know, we don't have that anymore. Now it's just like everybody is everything all at once. It's like Storm is part of 18 teams, Wolverine's part of 34 teams. Nothing matters anymore. So I feel like there needs to be some sort of prestige. There needs to be importance. It needs to feel, I don't know, almost earned.
Are you trying to get the vibes of like the X-Men #1 release from Claremont and Jim Lee? Because you remember how much like energy was
Oh,
involved in
it
that,
was
and how
huge.
people, I
Yeah,
mean I mean it broke sales records obviously, but just as far as the
it's
fandom,
that still stand. Yeah.
it just really was a kick in the keister. It made people excited about
Hmm.
X-Men again.
Of course. Yeah, yeah. It was a huge deal, and we don't have that anymore. And I mean that was a different time, of course. Um, I feel like we're desensitized all in a lot of ways to that sort of vibe and hype because just simply because Marvel and DC have gone to the well so many damn times that we have the law of diminishing returns. That was the first X-Men #1 in 30 years.
Yeah, how many have we had
You
since
know,
then, right? 6, 7?
many, many, many,
Yeah.
many. So it's like there's no way to get back to that sort of feel, of course.
Right.
Because I think X-Men and Uncanny X-Men are both on like volume 6 or 7, respectively,
Mm-hmm.
after these new relaunches. So they're nothing sacred, you know, nothing special.
Yeah, but paring down the books is a great idea because you,
You need to.
well,
There's too
yeah.
much.
Now in this day and age where basically it's been put out there, everything's a mini unless it sells.
Of
Everything's a
course, of
limited unless
course.
you start picking it up. Then
Hmm.
we'll keep it
Yeah,
going. To say that you're launching 4 titles based on this franchise, 3 of them are definitely not sticking around unless you're
no,
a top. I mean, going back to Superman having 4 titles or Spider-Man
sure.
having, I think he at one point had 4 titles too, right?
He had 4 and the quarterly,
Yeah,
yeah. So
so
it was him and Superman had the
there you
same,
go. I
yeah.
mean, those are big time characters. But
Hmm.
yeah, all the peripheral kind of stuff is going to
Of course.
fade away and disappear.
And
So,
And editorial was much more invested back then
Mm-hmm.
too. I mean, we talked about the summits.
Mm. Yep.
Now we're going to launch 9 X-Men books, and I can guarantee you within the first month or two, at least two of them are going to contradict one another
Sure.
because nobody pays attention to what other people are writing. There's no, the buck doesn't stop anywhere. So it's like you can have Gail Simone kill Rogue in an issue, and she'll show up, making pancakes in Jed McKay's book the same week.
Yeah. There's no
There's
editor's
no
note saying this takes
continuity.
place before X-Men number 3 or whatever,
Yeah,
Uncanny
of
number. Yeah.
course, of course. Yeah, there's nothing like that because I think editors are afraid. um, but nobody cares.
It's all in the details, baby. That's
Yeah,
it. It's all in the little minor details, just paying attention. Yeah.
that's
All
it.
right. Well, this was
That's it.
Christopher's X-Men hour, talking about
It was
new takes on
one of
old
many.
capes. Yeah, just that's what he's gonna do, man. He's gonna keep refurbishing the X-Men until they get it right. You know.
Well, or just stop breaking something that isn't, stop fixing something that isn't completely
Mm-hmm.
broken.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's all I got to say about that. I was very Forrest Gump of me. That's all I got to say
There you
about
go.
that. Yeah, I mean, geez Louise. So comics change. We're cool with it. Keep it going. Oh, you know what? That's not all I got to say
There you
about that. Because something just popped in my head.
Hit
This is
me.
how my brain cells work. They slow down. It's like going on a roller coaster. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Whoa,
Tick 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 tick.
whoa. Okay, because this relates.
Mhm.
5G legacy characters.
Mhm.
Now, those I know is you just made a sound about is something that possibly irks you. The fact that John Kent would take over permanently for Superman. You
Mhm.
know, these legacy characters come up from the wings. And, you know, you had mentioned that with
Yep.
Marvel earlier in this
Mhm.
segment,
It's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same
but
thing.
you're going to stick with that it doesn't matter, things don't matter anymore, if that's the case? Or.
Well, the thing with that,
Mm,
when DC was talking about 5G,
yeah.
they were trying to eat their cake and have it too. Um, in my opinion, they were chasing a fan. They were chasing the fourth fan, the fans that are never going to come with these changes.
Okay.
They wanted to give people access to ground level, like you could pretend that this is the start of a universe. Meanwhile, there's still 100 years of continuity that people might decide to play with. It's just that's just the way it is. I would say no matter how many times Fantastic Four launches with an issue number one, that doesn't mean that Fantastic Four number one from 1961 didn't happen. You have all that continuity that you need to deal with. What DC was going to do with 5G was they were gonna do what you said. They're going to replace all the heroes with legacy versions. I think it was like Luke Fox was Batman. Was was it Nubia was Wonder Woman? I mean, there was Teen Lantern. Um, there was just so many. Everybody was different, but they were going to put out a Clark Kent Superman book, a Bruce Wayne Batman book. They were going to do the actual heroes in books that were going to be like 8.99 a piece. Do you remember that?
I did actually read about that
Yeah.
after the fact.
Yeah, so it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy at that point where it's going to be okay, well, you guys say you want the classic heroes, but you're not buying the books. It's like, well, they're $10 a piece, asshole. You know, how are we going to do this every month? Of course, they're not going to sell.
Right.
So, kind of having their cake, eating it too, and proving a point that we crusty old fans are not going to put our money where our mouths are. So, 5G was like a cursed chalice, and thankfully, Dan DiDio was shown the door and hopefully slammed in it several times on his way out.
Well, I heard he's coming back to DC. I think to do like a Nightwing project or something. But this is like clickbaity. I only saw the headline. I didn't actually
Oh
enter
God!
the article.
Oh, come now.
Well, to be honest with you, this is something that me and you have kind of been at odds over because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
against legacy characters taking over permanently. And a lot of that relates to my own life because I'm aging. Someday my son's going to take over.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
But these are fictional characters, so they don't have
Mm-hmm.
to. You know what I mean? It's
No,
not
I mean
necessary.
we don't have Robin Hood's son taking over.
True, but I was not averse to it happening.
Dr. Frankenstein's nephew isn't taking over.
My thing was this: is rather than a $10 Clark Kent book, what I think, and I this is the mountaintop, baby, that I've always shouted from. What I think would be fantastic is if you took a handful of key characters, you're the big
Hmm.
two, you come out with a newsprint line. You make it a $2
Hmm.
book, old school, continuity based, and that's for the old school fan. Um, I think personally, I would go gaga for something like that. I think of a lot of
Hmm.
uh, to yet again use overuse another term. We always say fans of our vintage, but definitely people in our
Hmm.
age group would be very
Sure.
excited for a cost effective. And again, the quality is so much better now, even on newsprint, than it was when we were kids.
Of course.
Uh, yeah, based on just, and you could pick any continuity. You could start a fresh continuity. I don't care, but whatever you choose, you're sticking with it. Let's say you're gonna stay with it for the next 5 years, or hot pokers for everybody. Um, I think that would be just amazing.
Unless Bendis comes
Okay,
back.
yeah, sure, sure, sure. But I think that would just be a great way to appease a couple different fan bases. And what you said is true with the fourth fan, which is something that you went into. Was it last episode or the episode before? The different
One of
the
those.
different types of fandom that were based off the
Hmm.
wrestling list.
Yeah, Jim Cornette.
Jim
Yeah.
Cornette, thank you. Yeah, so why were they doing that? Trying to get fans that they can't get anyway? Maybe. Quite possibly the case. I just know, for me, I don't mind seeing characters age and possibly even age out, you know?
But all at once, I mean, when Barry died and Wally took over, it was special.
Mm-hmm.
It meant something because Wally had to grow into this role, and we had 230 issues of him doing just that. It meant something.
Mm-hmm.
Hal Jordan going nuts and doing the thing on Oa, and then Kyle becoming this unwitting Green Lantern and having to grow into that role. That happened, what, 1994? So almost a decade after Wally. That was a big change. We've had temporary changes. Our boy John Paul Valley, JPV, taking over for Bruce.
Mm-hmm.
Short lived. I mean, we had the reign of the Supermen. Short lived, fine, but permanently to do that to every character all at once is disgusting. I mean, it craps on everything. It makes it seem like, and I mean, it proves a point that DC, in this particular juncture, only cares about the symbol on the chest.
Well,
They don't care about the person behind it. They don't care about the people who've invested so many years reading and creating these
mm-hmm.
characters.
And staggering it out
We're
would
just
be ideal. But
oh, I mean, but staggering. We don't have patience for that
I
now.
know, but I'm saying, like, okay, as far as you saying, it's much like we talked about with the changes. Like, things just felt natural,
Hmm.
and you gave things room to breathe,
Organic.
organic.
Hmm.
With 5G, it's an initiative. You know what I mean? It's a company
It's
wide thing. So
garbage. Yeah.
okay, garbage, what have you. But that's why they do it all at once, because they're hitting you with this complete makeover. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, and it's a DiDio thing, and that's DiDio's MO. It's like, here's 52 new number ones.
Mm,
Care about all of them, please.
yeah,
Huh?
that
Okay, you
is
have
tough.
Action Comics number one, and you have Voodoo number one. You have I Vampire number one.
Right?
Who gives a crap about Voodoo number
Yeah.
one?
I love John
You know,
Kent though, man.
it's.
When they had the Son of Kal El book and they threw Superman
Mhm.
out into space, I thought it was just great. And
Because it was organic.
it was like
He
John,
was filling a
he's
role.
the
He was
Superman
filling
of
a
Earth.
spot.
That's
Yeah.
what he is. He's half human, for crying out loud, you know.
Hmm.
And to see that to see that keep going, I thought was very important to the growth not only of John Kent but of Superman himself. And
Hmm.
mind you, yes, it'd be way better to let that take time, its natural course. But
Hmm.
if they said to me tomorrow, John Kent and Superman, we're gonna put Clark Kent in a separate book, or maybe give him some time off, I'd be like, okay, okay, I'm cool. I'm gonna check it out.
and because it's one book. I mean, it's one character, one
Mm-hmm.
family of characters, and it's a story. It's a story. It's not gonna be no. There is no forever in
No,
comics. That's what we just talked about.
right.
Everything's in constant change and flux, despite the fact that we're so afraid of change, and we refuse it. We have no choice. We have it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I think doing that with a character like John Kent would be fine. No problem with that. Whether it be for a year, 5 years, 10 years, whatever, do it. But don't do it to every damn character. Like I was reading what was it, Dark Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
I read like the first issue of that, and like I'm looking at this like makeshift Justice League, and it's like, huh? It's like everybody's gone. I don't know. And of course, that was part of the story, but it felt very forced. And of course, we're talking about fiction, so everything is forced.
Right.
So it's silly to say, but it felt inorganic.
Well, Future State was the replacement, kind of like the well, we're giving up on 5G. Here's kind of what
But
we came up with.
that's actually something I was gonna say if we got around to talking about Doomsday Clock.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I didn't like about Doomsday
Sure.
Clock is that they gave dates for crap at the end of it. Do you remember that?
No,
I don't know if it's been a while
it
since you
has
read
been.
it.
It's been a few years.
Yeah, so at the end of it, it's like we have Doctor Manhattan.
Oh,
Like
oh,
he's
yes, yes,
talking
yes,
about
yes.
how the Superman legend will go on forever and ever and
Uh
ever and
huh.
ever and
Right.
ever.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, it'll always be rolled forward because that's just what happens. And he's like, 2025, Earth 5G. And I'm like, no, 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 no. 2025 is next year. I don't want 5G next year.
Uh
Because, some hack is like, ooh, there's a date there. We can do something with that. I'm like, no, please don't. Please don't. And then 2029 is the secret crisis, the Marvel and DC crossover. It's like, no, 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 no. We're close to that too.
I think Jeff
So
Johns
it's
just likes timelines anyway. See, even now with like
I'm sure
the
he does.
Ghost Machine stuff, if you flip to the end of the book, he's kind of got a. This is when this happened, 1775, 18. So and
Hmm.
so meets this character in this year. So
Hmm.
that's just becoming his bag, I guess.
But Jeff Johns has the distinction, and this is my own opinion
Mm-hmm.
here. He might be one of, if not the greatest superhero writer of this century. So I give him a
Oh
lot
yeah,
of leeway. Yeah.
absolutely. There's a
Yeah,
guy,
there's no one finer.
yeah, and there's a guy who like, yeah, he's got his fingers in a lot of different pots. You know what I mean? But
Hmm.
the love always shines through. The core.
Jeff Johns has written more scenes that have brought me to tears than any other writer.
He's excellent, absolutely
Um,
excellent.
he phenomenal, phenomenal. I mean, there was an issue at JSA. It was a Christmas issue where they reintroduced Ma Hunkel. I'd never heard of a damn Ma Hunkel before. You know, the original Red Tornado with the pot on
Uh
her
huh.
head. They brought her back as like the curator of the JSA museum, and it was a Christmas issue, which is already an emotional thing.
Sure.
But like she's like dusting the old costumes and stuff, and they're just talking about how welcome she is there, and it brought me to tears.
Yeah.
A character I'd never seen before, never even heard of before. This weird old lady with a pot on her head, and I'm bawling like a friggin' idiot.
Yeah. No,
It's
he's a
amazing,
very very special
amazing.
talent, unbelievable talent.
Oh, the Barry Wally scene in Rebirth, oh, oof, that
Mhm.
kills me every time.
You know, you giving him such high praise, and I 100% agree. But I think this allows for some debate on the show in the future as far
Mm-hmm.
as kind of not a list and not rankings because I mean, for God's sake, that's so overdone and tired. But I mean, kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
coming,
yeah.
maybe the viewers can participate in this, listing
Of
off
course,
some of
of
the most
course.
influential creators in comics,
Of certain eras,
or
yeah.
just according to them.
Oh, just okay
Yeah,
overall,
I think
yeah.
that'd be a good thing. And I want to hear from people too as far as their opinions on what we just discussed as far as change. Because you
Sure.
and I kind of had
The constant of change,
different
yeah.
opinions too on what 5G could have been. And
The finer points,
yeah,
sure.
Bada Bin
Yeah.
Show at Gmail,
Hmm.
Bada Bin Show on Instagram, easy ways to reach us. And we definitely, most want to hear from you. And yes, I'm talking to you.
Of course.
You there with
Hmm. Hmm.
the computer screen's a little
The bowl
dirty.
of cereal on your lap,
Yeah,
yeah.
got to clean that up a little bit. But yeah, you know. But I like talking about that kind of stuff. And it's funny how my brain
Oh yeah,
stalled out for a second there. If you notice in real time,
I didn't.
you didn't when I was talking
You
about
hit it
the
well.
roller coaster going up. I'm like, that's all I got to say. And
Oh,
then all of a
oh,
sudden, I'm like,
okay.
oh,
You buffered for a bit,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. I'm like, oh, 5G. We completely forgot to talk about 5G. And here we are. And it just took up a big chunk of time. And
Mm-hmm.
I love talking about that kind of stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So let's move on to more things that we love to talk about, like
Mm-hmm.
something that we discussed last episode that I really didn't have
Mm-hmm.
any intention of making into a regular segment, but you brought it up wanting to do it again, and I don't see why not. And that's Sweet Spot Comics. Comics that you can
Mm-hmm.
pick up, look at, sniff them, taste them if you're, that's part of your diet. But,
Gimmick, yeah. Yeah.
gimmick, yeah. But anyway, a book that you just see it and it transports you immediately to a happy
Oh
place.
yeah.
Those Sweet Spot books. And last time out, I had brought up Mad. You brought up, what was it?
Uncanny 308.
Uncanny. There we go. This time, though, we got some different books to discuss. And Chris, I
Mm-hmm.
would like you to lead off since last time I went with
Okay.
verbal diarrhea about my love for Mad Magazine. You get the podium, good sir.
The book I wanted to discuss, 'cause I think an ounce of positivity
Yeah.
is helpful here, because I mean, I think fans of our vintage get smacked around with the always negative about everything,
Right.
and I mean, there's a lot to be negative about in every aspect of life, not just our silly little hobbies, but an ounce of positivity.
I'll take
The
it.
book I wanted to talk about, of course, we take any victory we can get here on the Bada Bin Show. Um, Tales of the Teen Titans number 55. A almost like a fill-in issue. I think Ron Randall was on art, so it wasn't even like the regular artist on it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Marv is writing it, and it's a story that follows up on the trial of Deathstroke. Now, Deathstroke was on trial for all of his badness, and Beast Boy kind of kind of went nuts in the courtroom. Had the whole trial, had the whole case thrown out. Um, was yelled at by his fellow Titans for ruining, this attempt at justice for Deathstroke. But the reason he did that is because he had other designs for Deathstroke. He didn't want Deathstroke going to some country club prison. He wanted Deathstroke out on the street so he could kill him. So Beast Boy, who was in love with Terra, who was working for Deathstroke with the whole Judas contract, um, blamed Slade for everything that happened to Terra, and he wanted to kill him for it. So Beast Boy tracks down Deathstroke, says, "Hey, I'm gonna kill you." Deathstroke's like, "Bring it on." They fight for a bit, and then Beast Boy's like, he's exhausted. He's like, he doesn't know if he can go through with it. And Deathstroke basically says, "Hey, let's go talk." And the entire second half of the issue happens in a diner with Deathstroke and Beast Boy sitting across from each other in a booth, having this deeper than expected conversation about everything that went down. And it really hits a creepy spot, but a very important spot where Beast Boy, who was infatuated with Terra, and it seemed like she had feelings for him as well, he asks Deathstroke if he ever slept with her. Now, Deathstroke,
Ew.
yeah, Deathstroke, an old gray haired fella, Terra, maybe 13, 14 years old. Um, and Deathstroke plainly says, "Would that make any difference?" Doesn't say he didn't do it, doesn't say he did do it, but it was in that moment where I think a lot of things fell into place for Beast Boy, and like you could almost just see it happening. Ron Randall, he was the guest artist here, did a great job, and like he's dumbstruck by this answer, and he's like, "No, I suppose not. Like it doesn't matter whether or not you did or didn't." And they parted company as not friends, but not exactly enemies either. Terra's been changed a lot in the years since, which takes a lot of oomph out of this story. You know, um, there was question of whether or not Terra was inherently evil, question of whether or not she was mind controlled. People have different opinions on which one works better. Um, I like the idea that some people are just born bad. Some people are just bad. I think they changed it to that she was mind controlled and all sort of stuff that took a lot of the power out of the story. But the story in and of itself is one I can go back to. It's actually the first book I ever wrote about on Chris's on Infinite Earths back on January 31st, 2016. The first post I ever wrote was on this book. That's how important it was and is to me. A wonderful and kind of unsung
Mm-hmm.
issue of Teen Titans because that era was just loaded. I mean, we're just 5 issues removed from the wedding of Donna Troy, which was fantastic as well. Another one that almost brings you to tears. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Just a great era. And this one kind of, I think, gets overshadowed. And I think if anybody has access to it via whatever means, I recommend checking it out. It's really, really wonderful stuff.
You know, when you had mentioned this is the issue you wanted to talk about today, I searched
Hmm.
for the cover image online, and the moment I saw it, I'm like,
Hmm.
I had this.
Hmm.
And until you just kind of gave that synopsis of it, I couldn't tell you
Hmm.
anything that happened in the book. So there you go. That's a prime example of how certain books, stories can hit
Hmm.
somebody
Oh yeah,
in a particular way, while the other reader just either went over their head or just, yeah,
it just
just
happens.
was
Yeah.
sitting in my pile in my bedroom when I was a kid for, and
Hmm.
the whole creepy thing about the, did you sleep with
Yeah,
Tara?
the underage deal there.
Yeah.
But like the whole scene at the diner felt like it felt like we were reading something we shouldn't be seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Because just the juxtaposition of this little green boy across
Yeah.
from this, hardened old man, very weird, especially when you know the history and you know that they not 5 minutes ago were trying to kill each other,
Uh-huh.
or Beast Boy was trying to kill Deathstroke. Deathstroke was kind of just like, do it,
Yeah, right.
do what you have to do, kid. But just that whole scene, it felt surreal. Like when I was reading it, I couldn't believe that people hadn't been just shouting this issue from the rooftops because it was just that special, that different, that unique, just wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So, what say you?
oh,
What would be your
oh,
offering?
hello. Well, Chris, you know, immediately a handful of books come to mind, right? And I could discuss any one of them, but since we're going to try to do this on the regular, I was like, well, let me make
Mhm.
this one a little extra special, being it was my birthday and everything. Put a little icing on my
True.
cake, a little cherry on top of the ice cream. And let's
Hmm. Hmm.
go with the first comic I ever got my sticky, grubby little fingers on as a child,
Hmm.
which was the Incredible Hulk Annual number 11. Now, often you and I will talk about on the show and even sometimes complain about media destroying the medium that we love.
Hmm.
But as a
Sure.
kid in the early 80s, the exposure to comics came a lot of times through cartoons. Yes, indeed.
Sure.
Spider Man and his amazing friends, or for me, The Incredible Hulk, to which I will say to this very day has one of the best theme songs ever created for the small screen. But I'd seen the Hulk on TV and I thought he was
Hmm.
pretty cool. So I used to do this weekly trip with my aunt, who's only like 7 years older than me. So a lot of times she served as my babysitter. And we would
Hmm.
go every weekend to the penny candy store down the street from my house, where I would buy a handful of Swedish fish, a candy to which I love this very day. I just enjoyed last night. Guilty pleasure. And looking at the stands, the racks, and I see this image of the Incredible Hulk holding the entire world in his hands while other Marvel characters seem to be rushing in to attack him. I'm like, what? Whoa, what's this? And the ultimate of coincidences here is that cover is drawn by none other than the So Kid himself, the meh of the meh,
Milgram.
Al Milgram. Yeah, but man, talk about just clicking on all cylinders with that one, especially since the main story is titled and on the cover, The Day the Earth Turned Green. Oh my god, dude. So my aunt lets me buy this thing. And mind you, back then it was very expensive. I remember specifically I picked it up in 1983. I believe it was released in
Hmm.
1982. So it probably had a little thin layer of
It
dust
sat
on it.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But it was $1. you know,
A full
a
buck.
full buck. But oh my god, dude, like to have that in my hands was just okay. I've seen him on TV, but now look at this. Look at this sequential. I wasn't thinking sequential story. Now in hindsight, I can
Sure,
call it
sure.
that. But still, all this action playing out before my little eyes, dude. I was
Hmm.
hooked, absolutely and utterly hooked, and it created a lifelong love affair not only with the character of the Incredible Hulk, but with comics in general. So thank
Sure.
God that issue was sitting there in that penny candy store that day. Now, not only was it the first comic and all these little nostalgia bits I'm giving you, but it was actually a very enjoyable little yarn and drawn by someone who was, I would think, a titan at that time artistically, Rich Buckler, who,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, the guy he just hit and Joe Sinnott inked it. So and Bill Mantlo
Hmm.
was the writer. So it was a pretty cool story about how the leader, who to this day is still my favorite Hulk villain, was poisoning the water supply with gamma irradiated funk to turn everybody into their own little versions of him. He wanted everybody else to feel
Hmm.
what it was like to have a big elongated head and kind of,
Macrocephaly.
yeah, there you go, and be a little like Kermit. It ain't easy being green. But it was really cool because everybody was affected, all the heroes in the Marvel universe. So they thought the Hulk had something to do with it. And as he
Hmm.
rampages through New York, they're trying to stop him, thinking that he's spreading this illness, this disease. But at the same
Gotcha.
time, they're starting to get the green flu themselves and not feeling well,
Sure.
which is kind of like one of the standards when you talk about Spider-Man, for example, right? What was the great thing about Peter Parker was even if he had a cold, sniffles, he was still out there fighting crime as Spider-Man. But
Hmm.
here you'd go and Iron Man, old Shellhead's taking off his helmet, he's turning green and not feeling very well with the uh, the green flu. The Thing, the Fantastic Four, everybody is getting
Hmm.
affected by this, and you're like, whoa, this is some serious stakes right here. You know what I mean? Just outstanding. Unfortunately, it is slightly foreshadowing what we all had to go through recently with the whole COVID outbreak. You know what I mean? But still, so
Never heard of it.
yeah, you might have that might have been on your
Yeah,
radar.
never heard of it. Hmm.
But still,
I'm sure it wasn't that big a deal.
well, hey, this might trigger some people. Okay, if you go back to read the story and be like, at first it was purely fiction and out there and
Of
kind of
course.
zany, but now we've all kind of experienced it. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But yeah, it was, dude, my first, my only. I love the Incredible Hulk Annual 11 so much. And that's another one I try to pick up every time I see it out in the wild. I mentioned last episode how I would, oh, I think I did. Maybe it was just in general conversation with somebody else. So I
Mm.
apologize. Yet again, these zany brain cells of mine are.
You mentioned it on Instagram.
I could have, yeah. I mean, it could have been
You
anywhere.
did,
Maybe
yeah.
to a
If you're
transient.
saying what you're, if you're saying what I think you're about to say.
Well, maybe not because how I mentioned I bought the run of the New Warriors for my kid,
Hmm.
thinking that someday he would hit the age of like 12, and I would blow his mind by gifting him. Hey, this is like issue 1 through 24 of the New Warriors, but now he doesn't like comics. You know what I mean?
Mm.
But this is one of those things too where I picked it up thinking someday I'm gonna give this copy to my boy, and he will become a man when he finally reads the Incredible Hulk Annual number 11. You know? Was that what you were thinking or no?
No, no. You mentioned during the Instagram live when you were digging that there were some issues you pick up, even though you have it already.
Ah,
If you see it, you pick it up.
yes,
And I
yes.
thought maybe that's where you were
That
going.
is relatable, though. I appreciate you yet again
Mm.
paying attention.
I
You are a
do.
trooper.
I
But I
do.
want to share a picture
Uh,
real quick, Chris. I'm
did
sorry.
did your son when you went to show your son the New Warriors? Did he say, "I hear Fabian Nicieza kind of loses it
Yeah,
halfway through this"? Is that
that
what he
was the
said?
first thing he said. He said, "Dude, how?"
So Fabian's blocked him on
Yeah, and
Twitter too.
Fabian's like doesn't even know what a modem is. Come on, dude. It's a little inside joke there, I guess. But was I blocked? Did he block me on Twitter?
No, I don't think. No, but I think he just said,
He
"Hey,
was just
I'm
pissed
here."
off at me. There you go.
He
This
was.
another this a story for another day. But
Fabian, not so
not to
Nicieza.
me. No way. So, just real quick, I wanted to show the audience here how much I loved old Greenskin, Mr. Purple Pants himself, and how much impact, I mean, this issue had to the point where I even decided to go with a little body art. And now the audience can see my scrawny little chicken leg, but I have a Incredible Hulk tattoo. on my
There you
calf.
go.
Those, you know what I like to call that? A little gamma gam. Yeah,
There
little
you
gamma
go.
gam action right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, big time influential. A lot of love for the Incredible Hulk annual number 11, and it does have a backup story with Doc Samson that was drawn by Frank Miller, which people seem to
Hmm.
cite more than
Of course.
the world the Earth turned green story
Yeah.
itself. But bah humbug, man, great issue, great times, and boy, just a sweet spot book that just holds that special place in
Love it.
my soft spots, man. Oh my god, I love it. Yeah, I love it. I can't get enough of it. Now you probably picked it up and
Mhm.
went, meh, all right, whatever.
That's even if I own it.
Yeah.
That's even if I own it. I might not even own it.
Well, next time you go digging in the bins, you see it, you know what to do.
I will
You
snag.
definitely will snag. Please. And I'd like to have your opinion on it because, I mean, I just wax nostalgic like nobody's business.
Mm-hmm.
You will be able to wax on it, you know, sans nostalgic, but wax nonetheless. So
There you
we'll get
go.
our Karate Kid training in there. Wax on, wax off, baby. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and of course,
Mm-hmm.
we'd like to hear about the audience's sweet spot comics. Maybe you can suggest one.
Of
And you know what?
course.
Maybe we'll feature it on air. Does that sound like a plan? Maybe
Maybe.
we could put a little
I
feature,
like it.
a little.
I like
I
it.
always confuse listener and viewer. I want to say listener, even though we're not in podcast format.
We're more inclined for listener. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, a viewer interaction is always important. So, badabindshow@gmail.com.
Absolutely.
Let us know about your sweet spots, and yet again, we will talk about them right here on
Mm-hmm.
the YouTube. All right,
For
Chris.
sure.
Anything else you want to say about Sweet Spot Comics?
No, I'm enjoying this dip though.
Mm,
I'm liking having to. It's weird, you know. I think positivity is a skill.
yeah,
um, it's a muscle that we don't work out as often as we should, especially in the cynical world we live in, and the terminally online world that exists before us here. Positivity is a currency, and it's in short supply. So it's nice to flex those positivity
yeah.
muscles every now and again.
Gets me jazzed up, man. Gets me all
Oh yeah,
rocking and rolling. We talk
psyched
about these
and
old
yeah,
books. Holy moly. And actually,
for
if you want a
sure.
little side story that's a little gross but relates to my childhood, and
Let's do it.
okay, this penny candy store we go to, where I picked up Hulk Annual number 11, I told you
Hmm.
I love them Swedish fish, man. I got a big fat
Hmm.
bag right here around the corner, treated myself on my birthday. Well, my mom would give me a shiny quarter to go spend, and man, that's 25 Swedish fish, right? This
Hmm.
is the golden age of being a child. So
Yeah,
one day,
because penny candy was a penny.
indeed, yeah, there was no false
Yeah.
advertising there. And so my mom and my aunt are talking at the kitchen table or something. I'm around the corner and bored, waiting to go to the store. What do I decide to do? Balance the quarter on the tip of my tongue. Yeah.
How'd that taste?
Not good because it slid right down into my throat.
Mm-hmm.
I started choking. My mom freaks out, couldn't pull it out, so she decides to go boop and knock it right down. So I ended up going to the hospital, and they said, "Hey, this kid, nature's gonna take his course, man, and then we'll give it a
Mm-hmm.
couple weeks, and if George Washington doesn't come out to you know do whatever he's got to do, then surgery's the way we're gonna have to go." So of course, George wouldn't come out, and I
Ruh-roh.
get scheduled for surgery. So the night before my surgery, my mom, God rest her soul, was freaking out. Her little boy's about to get sliced and diced. No, 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 no. She's not letting any surgeon go Wolverine on this poor little 5-year-old
Mm-hmm.
child. And out of frustration, she picked me up by my ankles and shook me. It was violent, terrible shaking. It's probably abuse. Uh, but anyway,
Everything's on a spectrum.
there we go. Thank God she did, because the next morning, the first president of the United States made an appearance, and
Da, 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 da,
surgery
da,
was
da, da, da,
canceled.
da.
And as far as I know, up until her dying day, my mom had that quarter. Mind you, she cleaned it up and everything, but she had that as a little memento of that terrible time. But you
There
know,
you go.
I think this relates to the next bit that we're going to talk about, because that
Mm-hmm.
quarter could officially be deemed as a piece of ephemera. Mm?
Ephemera.
There we go. Your
Mm-hmm.
favorite
Mm-hmm.
word, ephemera.
That's bada bin
There you
ephemera.
go,
Yeah.
man. So, with that being said, I know you brought something to the table today.
I
you have
did.
some
I
show
did a
and
couple of
tell.
things.
So
I
I got a
do.
couple too from my hunt that I want to show off, but I want
Hmm.
you to take the stage right now, my friend, and show us the
Cool.
knickknacks and weird stuff that you have for us today.
Okay. Yeah,
Please.
a long time
Mm.
ago, we talked about the garbage boxes,
Oh,
right? We
sure.
talked about those before, and I got a couple of things from the garbage box here. And the first one is something I found, and I think I paid like a $2 for it because it was just like it seemed too cool not to pay for. It was this thing right here, the DC 1993 editorial presentation.
Oh.
I don't know who these were sent to. I'm guessing it was probably a some sort of a conference. Might have been at a Comic Con back when Comic Cons were about comic books.
Okay.
But
1993, sure.
it's the entirety of DC's 1993 output here with news and information and images and
Wow.
preliminary stuff that like some stuff didn't even come to pass. Some stuff changed a lot in the interim. Really cool bit. Probably not terribly interesting to people who aren't inclined to collect this sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but for the longest time, I only had this 1993 one. And I've been looking for, there's a 1992 and there's a 1994 that I know of. I know there's ones before 1992, but they are I'll use the word pamphlet because we don't use that other word. They're just saddle staple pamphlets,
Yes.
basically. Very thin, not much to them. Not sure I'd be able to find one in decent condition without paying a pretty high premium for them, and I don't want to do that because I like finding these things in the wild, and I think I like thinking that they found me, you know. But I finally came across 1994, which is this one right here,
Oh, wow.
and this one sucks.
The cover
This
looks like
one
an ad for Five Below or something.
doesn't
Yeah.
it? And the side is like real loud, but it's like it's similar to the other one, but if you're a fan of like DC superheroes,
Mm-hmm.
you have to get to boy, like page like 200 to get to that.
Wow.
Yeah, 1994 they were really pushing Vertigo. They were really pushing either Piranha Press or Paradox Press, whatever it was known by at the time. I think it was Paradox Press at this point, but not much on DC heroes in here. I was hoping because I mean the time is right. It's 1994, 0 hour, right? You figure, but it's actually the what is the byline here? It's actually like the oh here it is. The time is right for the leader in the comic book publishing to do yada yada yada. So nothing like I was looking for. I was hoping it was going to be some early prelim 0 hour stuff, maybe some Emerald Twilight sort of early looks at that, or just the prototypical plans for whatever that was going to turn out to be. Really wasn't the case. But I think I paid like eight to $10 for it. So I was happy to have it. It's on the shelf now where it belongs. I still want to get 92 because 92 is a huge year. Of course, we had the death of Superman. I've not seen that one anywhere. I did see a sold on eBay. One of those pages
Yeah.
where it shows that something sold,
Sure.
and it was like held together by tape, like hastily, like it looked like crap.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it still sold for like $70.
Wow.
So it's like, oh, no, I'm not gonna. Yeah, that's one I guys gotta keep digging into the garbage boxes to find.
Huh.
But those sort of things tickle me, you know.
Did you
The
because I know like pre-orders were just for the 0 hour 30th anniversary special. Did you bite on that?
I did,
Okay. All right.
I did.
Um,
I don't know what it's gonna be. Because I know we had like the Death of Superman anniversary thing, which I thought was just gonna be like a reprinting of it, but it was actually its own
right.
story. So I wonder if this will be something similar.
Yes, I believe it is. I
Like,
believe it is. It's its
oh,
own
okay,
story now with the original creators. So I know Jurgens and Ordway are
Jurgens
involved.
and Wardway. Yeah.
I did not bite on it just because to be honest with you, this is going to be the weirdest thing to say, but I don't like the binding on those books. I'm always afraid I'm going to crack the
Okay.
spine because they're thicker.
Oh yeah, the new prestige
Yeah,
format.
I
Yeah.
really I
Yeah.
just give me
Hmm.
two staples, man. Like don't use that glue on there because I can barely.
They just
It's
crack.
just so
Yeah.
hard. Like I'm opening it, like just barely
Hmm.
even getting a peer inside.
Oh yeah.
So that kind of bothers me a little bit. I'm like, do I?
Oh
Even though
yeah.
I had the subscriber discount, so it's only gonna be like six something maybe, or was it less?
I think it was like three and
No,
change
it's more
because
than
I think it
that.
was like
It was.
maybe.
I can double check, but I was thinking
Yeah, I
if I
don't
was wrong, it
remember.
was four something. But anyway,
Okay, could be,
um,
could be.
I was like, do I want to spend that this month, especially when I, will have a really hard time reading it, because I'm actually at a
Mm,
point now in my poll where I'm trying to keep it controlled under a certain amount. I'm on a budget. I'm a human being, and I'm always going over that
sure.
budget, you know. So
Hmm. Easy to do.
very easy to do, especially on my hunts. Oh my god, dude! But I was like, okay, so as far as the poll, man, I really don't want to cut this. I really don't want to cut that. I think the 30th anniversary 0 hour is like a luxury,
Hmm.
and it got snipped. So,
It's funny you mentioned
mm,
the difficulty in reading a prestige format because I'm coming up next week. Should be when I finally cover the Harley Quinn one
uh
shot
huh.
for No Man's Land, and that's prestige format. And it's one. I mean, it's Harley's first, in continuity appearance. It was. I mean, on you see that thing on eBay for hundreds of dollars,
Okay.
and I have to crack this thing open, and it's like,
Yeah, right.
I'm scared to do it because I'm afraid it's going to actually crack open.
Well, if that's the case, since you did by all right, you're purchasing it, right? So, or you purchased it, couldn't you read it online just to read it for the
I
story
could, yeah, I
purposes?
probably could.
I'm just
I
saying, I
probably,
think you could bend
I
your
probably
rules
should.
a little bit
Yeah,
on that, especially when it comes
yeah.
to look, and that's the thing. Like, I'm sure there's some people out there like, hey, man, you keep touting like you're this hardcore comics fan who's been reading over 40 years. What do you care about a little bit of binding? Or just buy two copies of the damn thing. No, I can't. I just can't do it.
No.
I always care. I mentioned the Biff Tannen method for how I read books. I
Hmm.
always care about the condition of my books. It's
Sure.
one thing if I buy something and it's a fine or it's a little ragged or whatever. I picked it up that way. But I've been entrusted with this book, man. I'm not getting it all gooey and going all screwy and breaking that binding or whatever. So Chris, real quick, my hunt on Friday that we mentioned was on Instagram, so make sure you follow at Bada Bin Show. I got a couple pieces of ephemera myself, and I'm sorry if my words are slurring a little bit, like I sound like I'm drunk. But I got this
Hmm.
very strange amount of reverb in my ear, which is creating
Hmm.
marbles in my mouth.
There
So
you
maybe I
go.
should slow down the way I speak. But anyway, to show off the kind of couple cool things I got here, for my money, there is not enough Metamorpho merch in the universe. Okay, I
Hmm.
think Metamorpho is a very interesting character that does not get shown a lot of love. So when I came across this, which is a 1970s 7-Eleven cup,
Very
yeah,
cool.
I had to give it a bite, and they originally wanted $10 for it, but I got a discount in the
Hmm.
shop because they were having a sale. And I was like, "Hey, how about the cups?" And they're like, "Well, you know what? We'll knock off a little bit for you." So I'm like, "All right, then you just made yourself a sale. Good for you."
There you
Which it
go.
was something I love about when you visit a shop is when they want to sell things.
Yeah, they see the value of getting things out the door.
Exactly. So it's like
Yeah.
they could tell I was on the fence about getting this because it's not something I
Hmm.
needed in my life. I liked it,
Yeah.
but they're like,
They knew it wouldn't take much to get you into that
"There you
car.
go.
Yeah.
Let's knock off 10%, and
Hmm.
he's gonna
Yep.
go for it." Um, as far as the graphics on this cup, I don't know if there's any 7-Eleven cup aficionados out there.
I'm sure there is.
So I'd be interested to know who illustrated this because this is not a Fredone. This is definitely. It almost looks Kirby esque. Um,
Is it Fredone? I've been saying Fraden.
I don't know. We both say
Huh.
names weird. Fraden,
We
Fredone,
do.
pecan,
Yeah.
pecan, tomato, tomato.
Hmm.
All right, but anyway,
Let's call the whole thing
there
off.
you go. That's the image. So if anybody has any information on that, please reach out because it is a very different kind of look. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is
Yeah.
Ramona. It's just kind of weird the
Yeah.
way it was printed. But anyway, that was really cool. And then this is a Superman button. I don't know if I got to take it out of the bag.
Oh, we could say, yep.
Okay, but it's an official member of the Superman Club, and it is dated on the side, so I hope it's authentic. 1966.
How about that?
And we were talking about buttons last time out. I'm not a big button
Mm-hmm.
collector, but I saw it and I thought, you know what? It survived. It is here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me pick it up. Kind of a cool
Bring it home.
little piece there. So
For
there we
sure.
go.
For
There's my
sure.
ephemera, and I am not. To answer the question, I'm going to put it here. Too much contorting for me. I am not going to drink out of this. This is only for show, so it is in pretty good condition. So I'm very happy about that.
You might actually get metamorpho powers if you drink out
Yeah,
of it.
yeah, you're right. Well, I'll definitely get
Mm-hmm.
gas. That's for sure. That's one form that will definitely take shape for my body. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it actually doesn't smell bad. I don't think it was ever used, so yeah, we might be in good shape. Get my tang in there,
Very cool.
you know. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't
There you
see a
go.
lot of 7-Eleven cups. I know they're really popular, and I'm sure they're in abundance, but I don't come across them myself very often.
Yeah,
So
I've never seen one.
you know what else I'd be interested in would be because
Hmm.
along the lines of Metamorpho, I don't think Jonah Hex gets enough merchandise. I love Jonah Hex as well.
I can't think of any.
I
Yeah.
mean, he's had some DC Legends figures, and
Who
I have like
hasn't?
a
Yeah.
statue behind me and stuff. But that was like based on
Mhm.
the pseudo crummy movie. Um,
Oh. Oh yeah, I forgot there was a movie.
yeah, but even in modern times, like McFarlane has 8,000 Superman figures, but no Metamorpho, no Jonah Hex. But yeah, I don't know if Jonah Hex ever got a 7-Eleven cup, and again,
I wonder.
not being in that universe, in that world,
I'm sure we could find out.
let me
Yeah.
know because I would probably spend a little extra to get my grubby fingers on one. So I mentioned my grubby fingers when I picked up the Hulk Annual 11. They're still grubby
Mm-hmm. They're still grubby.
40,
They've not ungrubbed.
41 years later. So
They have not
there
ungrubbed.
you have it. So yeah, that's ephemera hour.
Yeah, I have one more thing
Okay,
that I
lay it
wanted to
on me,
show here,
please.
which is another one from the garbage box
Oh,
here.
right on.
And we talk about online fandom. We talk about Usenet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what was it before Usenet was accessible?
Messenger pigeon.
These things,
Hello.
fandom directories.
What the hell is
Found
that?
these. It is basically where you could join fan clubs and make pen pals with all sorts of people who like different sort of things. Here, I mean, it's broken up by state sometimes. Here, you have comic stores, you have gaming stores, you have sci-fi stuff. It is one of the more bizarre things that I've seen, and it's one of those things that like you would never think in this day and age it would have a reason to exist. Like I'm looking at all these people's names here, people who want to be your pen pal to talk about anything from Star Trek to Blue Beetle to any damn thing. It's insane. There are some weird ads in here, like here the Judson Scott fan club. I don't know what that is.
Huh.
I don't know who Judson Scott is, but you could be a fan of his.
Wow.
It's just some weird stuff. What is? Maybe he's a Star Trek person. I don't know. But if you're in the Glendale, California area, you're up close and personal with
My
Judson.
initial thought is
Um,
how dangerous that
oh right.
is. Like, imagine like someone just dropping one of those off in like a prison rec room. Or someone's like, I need to talk to somebody. I need to write. And you get a letter from T Bone. Wants to
Hmm.
talk Star Trek: The Next Generation with you.
Let's, what do you think about the Vision and Scarlet
Yeah,
Witch?
right. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, just putting your
But
address out there is like, okay,
yeah,
all right, risky.
yeah, and I mean these are, I guess they came out every year. You know, this is Fandom Directory 10 and 11. I don't know how many more there were. I never looked these things up online, but I found one in the garbage box, and then I found one in a different garbage box at a record store. So it was they're interesting. I don't know. They're probably only interesting to someone like me, but
Well, no, I'm very
I
interested with
like
it. I don't
them.
know if I'd buy it, but
Yeah, I mean, I think I paid $1 for one of them, and I paid like $3 for the other.
okay.
So I mean, they were nothing but weird stuff.
See, I'm interested in it because you paid for it. You know what I mean? Like I find like it's not something I would have purchased myself, but now that you own it, I'm like, wow,
Mhm.
that is very interesting. You know.
Yeah, it's
Um, now, what year do those did those come out?
1988 and 1989.
Wow. You want
Yeah.
to take a stab in the dark and just send out a couple letters, or
I wonder if there might be phone numbers in here, huh?
well,
Yeah,
well,
it's like the when me and Chris Bailey would do the Moratori show.
yeah.
When we get to the ads in the back of the book, and there would be a phone number, Bailey would pull out his phone and call
Oh,
it.
okay.
It was always very, very interesting. But I don't think that's something we want to do with the fandom directory.
Yeah, I guess not. I mean, I'm sure, the obvious thing is, oh,
Unless we can get Judson on the phone.
yeah, right. Well, actually, let's do that. Let's do that.
Judson, are you watching?
Do you get his phone number?
No, no, it's just the fan club,
Oh, all right. I was
unfortunately.
gonna say I'll pull a Bailey and call it right now, but does he have an address?
Yes, in Glendale, California.
Let's write him a letter.
We'll send him. We'll do it the old snail mail here.
Well,
We'll get
I was thinking about
we'll
doing
do,
some stickers for Bada Bin, so maybe we can send him a sticker,
send him some out. Yeah,
and just
yeah. You've been
yeah,
immortalized.
see what happens and go from there. Yeah. Wow, isn't that something? Imagine,
Weird
but
stuff.
here's the other thing: is there any listing in the beginning saying you must be X amount of years old? Is there any
I don't
restrictions
think
or
so.
rules?
I don't know. I'll have to double check and get back to you
Could
on
you
that.
imagine like you did that and you were like 9 years old and you started getting a bunch of letters and your
Mm-hmm.
folks are like, "What the hell is this?
Yeah.
What's going on here? Why do you have requests for photos of you in your underwear? What's happening here?"
This is turning very, very
Yeah,
dark.
exactly. Well, then or now? Both.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
There you
Yeah,
go.
like I think all this weird crap on my shelves, and it's like if I were to drop dead
Uh
today,
huh.
anybody who would come in here would be like, "What in the what? Why?
Yeah.
Why is this crap here? And what could anybody see any value in any of this crap?"
Well,
I don't know.
there are worse things to be found post your death.
True.
Uh,
True.
like you always hear like, "Don't let the FBI see my laptop," or
Oh yeah,
like,
like delete my search
yeah,
history or
yeah. There
whatever.
you
Yeah.
go. It's like, oh wow, look at this creepy son of a bitch. He's got the fan
The
directory.
1990
There
fandom
you go.
directory.
What kind of
He's a member of the Judson Scott fan
yeah, the
club.
sad prick. Unbelievable. So let's move on to more fandom stuff and people who seem
Mhm.
to enjoy the Bada Bim program. You want to get into some
Oh
emails? Why don't you
yes,
cue those
we
suckers up?
can.
Yeah.
We can.
And I
Okay, let's.
came up with a clever name for
Mhm.
our letters page, and it's now called the Bada Babble.
Hey,
So
hey,
there you go.
I like it.
If you ever want to reach out to Bada Babble, badabinshow@gmail.com. You don't have to
There you
list
go.
okay to print or okay to read because we're going to do it anyway. The
Probably.
moment you hit send, you're
Probably.
doomed. So if you are
Done deal.
sending pictures of yourself in underwear, it's going to be on YouTube next week.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. And you're gonna start getting
There you
letters.
go.
Yeah. All right. Let's start with your buddy from real life.
Yes,
Now,
please. Beto.
how do we Beto? There we
Yep.
go. I was gonna say I don't know how to
How
say
would you say it?
Beto. Beto. I'd say Beto.
Beto. I think you have it
But I'd
right.
be wrong.
I
Do I?
gringo every Spanish name. I put my gringo
Mm.
twist on it. So there you go.
And we're both married to Mexican women.
Whoops. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
not whoops that
Yeah.
we're
Sorry.
married.
Sorry, ladies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not
No.
just
But sorry, we say your names wrong.
we say everything wrong. Everything is said
We
wrong.
do.
That's what the whoops is for.
Don't take it personal.
Please, but continue.
Um, but we're going to start with Beto
Yes.
or Beto. He says, "Hello, Dave. Hello, Chris. Long time listener, first time writer. I'll keep it short and sweet. This question,
Mm.
this question is for Chris. On your last episode, you spoke about the characters you loved as a kid that have been ruined by the way they're written in current day comics. Have you come across any characters that have had the opposite effect on you? Poorly written when they were first introduced and written much better now to the point where you love them. Keep up the great work, guys, and I look forward to tuning in when I can." That's a great
Mm.
question. I don't know. I probably should have read this
I was
before I
gonna
read
say,
it.
give him a great answer.
Yeah, because when you mentioned you had a question
Uh-huh.
for me, you said it was along the lines of, "Can you go back to
Yeah,
those?" Like
he
if,
pivoted there.
like say, yeah, like say if we were talking about the X-Men, or we'll talk about the X-Men because we always talk about the X-Men.
Okay.
I said that when the X-Men are bad in current year, I have a trouble going back to enjoy the past because I know what they're going to become, right? The sins of the son on the father, yada yada yada. But when the X-Men get good again, can I go back and reread those stories with even the intermittent dips? And yes, I can. I can do that. I can get back to enjoying things, and I can even probably get a little bit of enjoyment out of the stuff that caused me to leave in the first place. And I'm a, time is, time heals all wounds, of course. And like we talked about earlier in the show, like when you're reading something, you're like, well, this is awful, but it can't get any worse. And then you realize, yes, it can. And then, three times removed, that stuff that drove you away in the first place is pretty damn good compared to what you got now. It's like, huh, weird stuff. But trying to think if there's any that have had the opposite effect. The only one I can think of off the top of my head was a bait and switch. Um, I hate Lobo. I'm not a fan of Lobo, but then Peter David put him on Young Justice as Slowbo, a teenageified Lobo, and I thought that was a lot of fun. Later came out that that wasn't actually Lobo, so that kind of fell apart. Um, Deadpool. Deadpool's one that I kind of go hot and cold with. I started off very cold because I wasn't a fan of him at first, and I wasn't a fan of his until the Joe Kelly run, which I thought was phenomenal stuff. I don't know if we said this on the air, but like Joe Kelly should get like a creator credit on Deadpool
Mm-hmm.
because of what he did for the character. Just wonderful, wonderful stuff. And of course, he's dipped back into redundancy and garbage a time or two since. But that was one that I couldn't stand at first, and then I felt he was better written under Kelly. But as for stuff now, I don't know
Huh.
because honestly I don't read enough new stuff now. Um, yes, I'll have to think about that and hopefully remember to answer that another time. Dave, how about you?
The question wasn't directed towards me, so
That's
I'm not
okay.
letting you scapegoat and get your way out of that just because you don't have an answer and,
I
and you
don't.
failed our viewership.
I failed.
So you can't
I
put that on
failed.
me, man. All right?
I'm just looking for I'm looking for a hand
Yeah, I'm
up,
not bailing you
not a
out.
handout.
No. No, there you go.
I will be flogging myself later. That is how it
Okay.
goes. But do you have any? Just my own curiosity. Chris in Peoria, Arizona, has a question for Dave.
Yeah. No.
See, it's not as easy as it looks.
I just was like,
Uh,
don't put me on the spot, man. I don't know what the hell to say. Just let him. I was like chilling out over here. I went to you full screen because I'm like, this question isn't for me. I can just go take a little vacation.
there
So I'm
you
still
go.
on
There you go.
vacation, gone fishing.
But but Beto does have a PS
Oh,
here, and this one's directed at
oh,
me,
there you
and
go.
it
See you
says,
later.
who's your favorite wrestler?" And it's another one I'm being put on the spot. My favorite wrestler is probably Bret Hart. He always has been, probably always will be.
Really?
Um, yeah, big fan of his work. His career ended way, way, way too soon for me. Just a master psychologist in the ring, was able to tell a great story, was always able to sell. I go back to the King of the Ring 1993, where he had three matches. He was crowned King of the Ring in the tournament, and he had three matches with three very different kind of wrestlers. It was Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig, Razor Ramon, and Bam Bam Bigelow. So three different body types, three different technical processes, and he managed to have three completely different matches with them in one night. And he carried with him any sort of injury he got in the matches prior. So like if Mr. Perfect worked the leg in the match with Razor Ramon, he was selling the leg the
Mm-hmm.
whole time. Like he kept that with him. And then if in the Ramon match he hurt his elbow, then when he was with Bam Bam in the finals, it's like he was nursing the leg injury and his arm was faulty. It was just masterful storytelling. So that when he won, every victory he got that night wasn't with his finishing move. It was a different move. It was a like a roll up or a victory roll or something you wouldn't expect to finish the match. Just amazing, amazing storytelling. And that's Brett's always going to get a pass from me. Not just based on that night, but just in general. I think he's just fantastic. So thank you for that. I don't really get to talk wrestling too much anymore, so
He'd be great at
it's
calling
neat
into
to.
work, Bret Hart. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Bret Hart would be the best at calling into work because he could totally feign the injury or the
Of
sickness. Like
course, of
he could, like you
course.
said, he could sell it
Yeah.
like nobody's business.
He sells it, man. He's got the flu. He's got the creeping crud. He's got whatever to keep him from going into work on the assembly line.
I'm still thinking about Beto is like 'cause to me the question was like broccoli, right? Something that grew on you or something that you.
Yeah, okay, I guess
I'm
so.
still like I don't know, man. Like what's something I love now that as a kid I
Hmm.
was like ugh.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like, is there anything that that I didn't like at all? I like it now, and I can go back and enjoy the older stuff now that I
Well,
couldn't at the
for
time.
me, I was gonna say, and I feel like I talk about it way too much, but like Superman, I didn't like Superman as a kid. I love Superman now, but it's not
Hmm.
based on the stories. It's more just on
Yeah,
the character itself, and
the character and just
it,
the experiences we have with them,
yeah,
and
exactly. So it's like I'm gonna have
yeah.
to ruminate. I'm gonna have to
Mm.
on that for a little bit. I'm gonna have to think about that. But yeah. All right. Anyway, you wrestlers, y'all know my favorite wrestler, so I don't even need to answer that question.
It's
Yep.
true. It's very, very
Mm-hmm.
true. Now, now our next piece of mail comes from our friend Chris Yu, and I cannot read it.
Uh
Let me
oh.
make this bigger. Yeah, where's my thing that makes me see? How do was it Control Plus? Is that what makes things
I
bigger?
don't know.
No.
I never need to do that. So where are your readers? Your
Again,
$4 Walmart readers.
there we go. I have this thing blown up to 175%.
Hey,
Okay.
whatever it takes. Get that letter out there,
Whatever it
baby.
takes. See, this is what we
Yep.
do. This is what we do.
Sacrifices must be made.
Okay. Chris says, after just seeing you on Friday, this episode was like comics overload for me. Remember, we had a quick
Mm-hmm.
turnaround. He says comics overload, but in a good way. I was enthralled by Dave's stories of his love of Mad magazine. Mad was never something I read, but something I always saw in the newsstands when I would buy comics in my youngest days. At this point in my life, I'm all about experiencing the comics I never had an interest in when I was younger, many, many years ago. So hearing Dave talk so passionately about Mad really piqued my interest. Honestly, I could probably listen to a whole show just about Mad Magazine and its sister publications now. Thanks for giving me insight into a topic I'd never experienced before.
Cool.
So big thanks to Dave for turning him on to Mad and the Mad
All right.
alikes.
Well, now he's going to go hit the shops and buy some, and his life will be forever
Mm-hmm.
changed, and he'll be happier and probably more productive, and he'll be more successful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, more attractive to women, more
All
virile.
of it.
Be able to You'll be hero of the
There you go.
beach
No more
for
sand
sure.
being kicked in your face, Chris. You.
Mm-mm.
Baby.
Mm-hmm. You gamble that dime and you'll get
Yeah.
the whole plan. Chris continues. My sweet spot comic would have to be Tales of the Teen Titans number
Ooh.
50.
Look at
Mm-hmm.
that.
The Wedding of Donna Troy. It's my favorite comic of all time. The thing that draws me to it is that it's an oversized anniversary issue that is completely a character piece. There are no fights, no villains, and no costumes. It's just a story about friends coming together to experience one of the most important growing up moments of their friend's life. And there are so many Easter eggs to be found. I still don't think I know who all the guests Perez drew in attendance were. But it was thanks to a comment on Chris's Uninfinite Earths that I learned who the Sting who attended the wedding was. And the scene between Dick and Bruce on the balcony is the perfect cap to the evolution of Dick from Robin to Nightwing. Just thinking about this issue makes me want to go reread it again. That's I that's definitely one of my sweet spot comics as well. It is wonderful. Um, Reggie and I did an episode on that. We did a Life and Time of Terry Long episode of the Cosmic
Yeah.
Treadmill where we talked about the entire history of Terry Long, and then the main event was obviously his wedding to Donna Troy. It's an amazing, amazing issue. Everybody gets a shine, and like Chris said here, no bad guys. How many times do we see a wedding in comics where it's like halfway through it, bad guys show up?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, or like maybe a reformed bad guy shows up to show his respects, but everybody like gathers around to fight him first, and it's like, oh no, he's here, he's a good guy now, he's all
Yeah.
right, he's not going to mess anything up.
Well, you both
But none of
went
that.
for non-traditional stories there, where you had mentioned with 55, there's
Hmm.
Garth and Deathstroke sitting in a diner,
Hmm. Yeah.
and with Chris Yu, it's not the most conventional issue either. But for some reason, when
Hmm.
it hits, it just hits. You know.
It does. It does. And he draws attention to a certain scene that I actually wanted to talk about as a segment on a future episode here. So maybe we'll prime the pump for
Okay,
it.
cool.
Uh, the scene with Dick and Bruce on the balcony is amazing. It's like Chris puts it here. It's the evolution of Dick from Robin, the boy sidekick, to Nightwing, his own man, a leader of men. And it was spectacular how it went. And it got me to thinking about those. I don't want to call it tropey, though maybe in retrospect it became tropey. Those scenes in comics that we get over and over and over again, to where the first time they were just amazing, mind blowing, and every subsequent time it's a little bit less special because I swear, since Tales of the Teen Titans number 50, Dick and Bruce have had that conversation about 4,000 times, where Dick is like, "I'm my own man now," and Bruce is like, "I understand that, but," and it's just over and over and over again to where it's not special anymore.
If gargoyles could
It
talk, they're like, geez, this again?
right?
You know?
It's just like, can we please not? And there are certain beats in comics that I
Mm.
could totally understand a writer and a fan, a lifelong fan who became a writer, really wants to put their spin on. We talk about Pearls in Crime
Oh,
Alley.
yeah,
How many
geez.
friggin' times we got to see
Oh,
that?
right.
It's every time a new Batman writer comes on, it's like, oh, Pearls in Crime Alley. There it is again.
Hmm.
Anytime somebody takes over Nightwing, we get a variation on this scene. And sometimes it's done in a loving way, sometimes it's in an adversarial sort of way, but it's always the same thing. And that's something I wanted us to talk about on a future episode. These scenes that are spectacular at first, that just get played into the dirt.
Hmm.
So
Yeah,
we'll have to do some thinking on
right
that and
on.
come
Yeah,
back around.
totally.
We'll put a pin in that. Back to Chris Yu. He says, since I don't buy modern comics, I can't speak to how good or how bad they are. But even with some disappointing runs in the comics of old, I don't know. Sorry. But even with some disappointing runs in the comics of old, I don't let what came after an amazing run deter how I feel about earlier good books. Because I am insane.
Hmm.
That's what I do. My example is the Walt Simonson run on Thor. I can go read the issues he wrote and drew and love them the same today as when I first read them, even though I know that the Tom DeFalco run is coming later and I really didn't care for them. I swear Tom DeFalco probably wrote like 7,000 issues that in a row. It's like that seemed unending.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I enjoy that run. That's like, to me, that's the Thor run. So it's kind of,
I never got into Thor,
yeah.
so
I was never
it's
really either, but that's the thing. I like
yeah.
that Tom DeFalco, like, throwback to the Silver Age thing
Hmm.
he had going on there. But that's neither here nor there because this is
Was
about
that with Lim or Friends?
friends.
Friends,
And it's
okay.
cheesy stuff,
Okay. I,
man.
I conflate them a
It's
lot.
not great, but for some reason, it's like a little, yet again, like a little soft area for me
And I,
to get into that reminds me of being a kid.
and I think yeah, I think the New Warriors had their first appearance in an issue with Thor.
Yes,
I,
you're
I can't
correct.
remember which one, but
You
yeah.
are correct.
Yeah, and I think it was the DeFalco era. Chris says that he just stops when Walt Simonson does. I don't have to experience the stories that I don't like. And the Simonson run on Thor, I have one of the fat trades of it here, and I've tried to get through it many times, and I can't. I just don't care about Thor. The only Thor run I actually kind of cared about was Dan Jurgens' short run.
Hmm.
I don't know, but never did it for me. Chris continues. I'm one of those old guys who read pre-crisis DC, and I can still enjoy every JLA JSA team up as if they were brand new. Who cares if Earth 1 and Earth 2 don't exist anymore? In those stories, they still do exist. The tossing away continuity with the New 52 was nothing new. All those post-crisis reboots, Byrne's Superman, Perez's Wonder Woman, Truman's Hawkworld, tossed out the stories of the versions of the characters that came before. Even the Silver Age threw out the stories of the Golden Age. The Superman from Action Comics number 1 is not the same Superman being published today. The newer versions of the characters build on the previous versions, but are allowed to evolve in ways that older versions wouldn't have. And those older versions still exist. They're just no longer the prime reality that we're experiencing now. They're just a multiverse away. And we could blame Dr. Manhattan for that, I think.
Yeah, now,
Now we can I can actually say that with having read it.
now you've read the damn thing.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I finally read the
I
damn thing.
know.
So you know, um I kind of go a couple of different ways on that. I can understand it, but he says here the stories still exist, and that always gets stuck for me. It gets stuck in my throat because that's what we were all told
Hmm.
when the New 52 happened. It's like, oh, you babies, those stories they're still on your shelves. They're still in your long
Yeah, it's
boxes,
true.
and it's like, well, yeah, but they don't matter,
To you.
you know.
Because you're letting the
Well, they
company
do.
dictate how you feel about them.
I am, and these are Chris problems. This isn't me trying to tell anybody to think the way I do because God help you if you do.
Uh-huh.
You know, if I had to have a conversation with myself, I'd be swinging from the fan right now. I would not want to inflict myself on anybody, nor anything in my mind. But I I can't get past it. You know, it's something that I know it to be true, but I can't. I understand it, but I can't believe it.
Hmm.
If that makes any sense. Um, because the company is. I don't remember if it was Eric or I think Eric sent us a mail. Maybe it was Chris himself who sent us the email a couple of weeks ago, where it was like, well, headcanon, sure, headcanon counts, but right now the headcanon of whoever's writing it is what counts. You know,
Mm.
because even the professionals have their own headcanon, and they're just fortunate enough to be able to make it the canon for now. So I don't know.
Dude,
I don't know. I don't know how I feel
I
about that.
pay for the books. I read the
Hmm.
books. This is my universe. I am surrounded by things that I enjoy, okay?
Hmm.
My name is David Schultz. This is my reality. So, the fiction that I enjoy, that I imbibe, is whatever I
Hmm.
decide it to be. Okay? I'm not letting
You know,
decisions on
I can
high
understand that. I can understand that.
change how I
But
feel
I but
about things. Okay? It's not happening. This is my world, and I'm determining how things are going to go.
well, there you
Mm.
go. I think that's one of the reasons why Doomsday Clock hit me as profoundly as it did this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we said, it has the pedigree. It felt real. It felt like something we could hold on to. There's something that's not going to be taken from us. Um, because a book like Watchmen, you could think about it in wrestling parlance as some sort of a lineal champion. You know, if you're going to outdo Watchmen, you need to outdo Watchmen. You need to do something as good or better. And I think they achieved that with Doomsday Clock. I'm sure opinions vary, but I think that they did Watchmen a service with Doomsday Clock. And in order to anything that goes past that, you're going to have to outdo that. And I don't know that there's anyone out there with the talent or the drive or the knowledge or the passion, frankly, to do that.
Yeah, but real quick,
So,
Chris, you mean outdo Doomsday
mm,
Clock? Because really, I would think of it more as it has to be a compliment to, not.
well, yes, it has to beat it in a way where it does it a service. It has to either build upon it or outdo it. Because, like we said, our comic writers can't agree on much,
Mm-hmm.
just like comic fans. So there might be someone in the DC or Marvel bullpen or indie bullpen or someone in their mom's basement right now who says, "I hate Doomsday Clock. Screw Doomsday Clock. I'm going to negate
Yeah.
it." And the way the comic industry is, if somebody comes in, they're given 15 monthly books, and maybe one of them will be Doomsday Clock 2. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe Tom King will get it. Who
Oh, yeah.
knows?
But even then, I
I
just
mean,
totally disregard whatever that person does with it.
well, and of course we have that luxury,
Mm-hmm.
and but I don't know, as a fake ass comics historian, as someone who believes everything matters,
Mm-hmm.
everything counts, and Doomsday Clock paid a lot of service to that. The Superman from 1938 is kind of the Superman from today. It's just different,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
Dr. Manhattan looks and he's lifting a car over his head, and then Dr. Manhattan looks again and he's not there anymore because he was pushed forward in the timeline, but it's still the same guy. That made it, I don't know, that kind of blurred a lot of lines. But who knows? Who
Hey,
knows?
man, I'm glad it took
I
that
feel like
much
I'm
of an
rambling.
impact on you. Like, when we had talked about it, and I was like, yeah, man,
Mhm.
you should really give it a shot in its entirety because I think you're going to enjoy
Yeah.
it. I mean, I did kind of have a sliver of doubt that you wouldn't like it. You know what I mean? Because with you, you never
Mhm.
fully know. I mean, I being friends as long as we have,
Mhm.
I have a fair amount of knowledge on what you care for and what you don't. But this one was like there's a little shading of gray there. I'm like, he might not go for this, but I really did enjoy it. So to know that you
Oh yeah.
not only liked it, but now it's having this kind of impact on you, and
Oh
I mean,
yeah.
you're thinking about it. Is there's gears moving in your brain?
It's
It's wonderful.
it's taken up
Yeah,
residence.
yeah. It's
Yeah, it's
great.
definitely
That's
living.
awesome, and I
Yeah.
think that's should be on the back of the book. Like Chris is thinking about this stuff, people.
Yep. This idiot in
There
Arizona
you
is,
go.
is
You know,
can't stop
there
thinking
you
about
go.
it, and it's
Badababble.com.
ruined it's ruined other books for him. Back to Chris's email here.
Okay.
He says Swamp Thing is one of those osmosis characters for me. I never read or even owned a Swamp Thing comic. I've read a bunch of articles and watched a bunch of retrospective videos on the character's evolution, but I've not experienced any of his stories firsthand. It's an admitted hole in my comics knowledge.
Okay. Well,
Hmm.
sucks to be you, man, because it's a fascinating, awesome, wonderful character that's got a whole lot of lore.
Yeah.
Some really great runs on it.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, if you were pressed to answer the question, hey, is Swamp Thing an A-list character? No, he's not considered. He
No,
can't
no.
barely hold a series, unfortunately. C-list maybe. What would you say, Chris, if someone said, where would you rank him as far as the pantheon of tiers of character?
B.
B? You
I'd put
give him
him in
B?
B.
Okay.
I'd go as high as B for sure because I mean, even Chris here, who he's a peripheral character to Chris, he knows how important he is.
Mm-hmm.
He knows how important the seminal Swamp Thing stories are.
Yeah.
Whether or not they're still in continuity, it really doesn't matter, I suppose. But Swamp Thing was you know, what do we call it when we tear apart a character? The Alan Moore process. What is it? Deconstructing.
Yes.
It was a very deconstructive take on a supernatural character that up to that point was basically wasn't it like it was kind of almost hulky. You know, he could change back and forth for a little while
Mm-hmm.
from Alec Holland to the character and to Swamp Thing. So it was a total change
Well,
and
yeah.
very important very important to and very influential to the way comics characters were depicted from that point on,
Yeah, and
and in a very unassuming title.
kind of relating to the initial topic of the show, the new takes on old heroes. I mean,
Hmm.
as you mentioned, the deconstruction from Alan Moore, it was a very basic concept, and
Of course.
beyond all that, at the end of Volume One, it was they really didn't know what the hell to do with them, and they were
No.
throwing things in the story that were completely retconned now that just don't
Hmm.
kind of relating to what you were saying too as far as like things matter, they don't matter anymore, and there's no writer that wants to
Hmm.
revisit it no matter what, unless maybe you do get that one guy who thinks he's clever and hits the wiki and goes, wait, he's got a brother. Nope.
Oh
Yeah, he
yeah,
was
the
washed from
brother.
continuity, man, but still he took it
Yep.
apart. He said, okay, like you said, the Hulk, or you could go even more like Frankenstein's monster, whatever. It's so
Hmm.
yeah, and I almost feel bad because you don't want to spoil it all these decades later by just blurting
Of
out because you
course.
want people to experience it for the first time.
Oh yeah, because it's mind blowing.
But the way he rethought it and the way he reinvented it
Hmm.
was, I mean, top tier level stuff
Of
that
course.
could it be replicated again? Could a writer be that creative and ingenuitive and go, wow, let's throw the comics world on his ear and surprise everybody by
Oh,
doing something that no one else had the wherewithal to
it's
think of.
yeah, it's on its. It just turns it on its ear.
Amazing, just amazing stuff.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
and actually, when you were talking about earlier about Jeff Johns being like the greatest comic writer of the century and stuff, of course
Hmm.
you're gonna have the big names in that mix. But for me, Alan
Sure.
Moore, despite not always okay, so I'm sorry, I do this like pause when I'm talking because in my head, I'm having the
Hmm.
conversation with myself while I'm having the conversation with you. But there are writers that I consider upper echelon, right? They don't have a perfect record. They don't have an unblemished
Nobody
history,
does. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Nobody does.
But still, you look at the successes that they had and you try to rank them or rate them, and you go, well, the anatomy lesson from Swamp Thing from Alan Moore, boom. Like, so whatever you may think of him or
Hmm.
stories you thought that missed, man, that gives you so much leeway, so much like forgiveness because it was just that great, that
Hmm.
good, that who else can do that? Who else will ever replicate that? Probably nobody. You know what I mean? And Jeff Johns in
Yep.
particular, while he has had some misses, the consistency
Of
is
course, of
just
course. And I need
unbelievable.
you to keep talking because I have someone at the door.
Okay,
So I will be back in just a moment. So vamp for me, my
I will
friend.
go answer that door, and while I have everyone's attention, I will talk about some stuff that I meant to kind of bring up earlier during the whole intro to the show, but I forgot because we talked about my birthday, which was awesome, off the hook, had a great time. But my birthday is always connected with Father's Day. Now, as most of you know, I have an 11-year-old son who is a cool little dude, doesn't like comics, but has his own things going on. But hey, you know, you got to nurture that. You got to support that. You know what I mean? Fandom is still fandom, no matter where it decides to reside. But on Father's Day, I woke up to this. And before I showed off, I want to say to all the other dads out there, congratulations. Happy Father's Day to you. But honestly, y'all can retire now because look at what I received. This great little letter that says Father of the Year. Love you, Dad. How nice is that? That's a beautiful thing to wake up to. Now, mind you, he probably had the Pokemon stickers and the little coin just laying around. He kind of slapped it together there, but still. I said retire, but I guess I only got. I was hoping for Father of the all time, but it's only Father of the Year, so you guys can try again next year. But yeah, that was kind of cool. So yeah, and then Chris was allowed to talk about wrestling. Now, if you are visually looking at the screen and your eyesight isn't as piss poor as Chris, you would notice I am rocking some serious Celtics gear here because my Boston Celtics just won the finals and have brought home banner number 18 over the lousy, stinking, terrible, and I know because I live here, Dallas Mavericks. And it appears Chris has returned so we can
Hmm.
go back to our regularly scheduled program and email responses
Yes.
right
Yeah,
now.
it was the bug man. The bug man usually rings once and then does what he
The
does, but
Bugman
he rang like
cometh.
3 or 4 times.
Okay.
He does indeed. The Swamp Thing retcon.
Mm.
I I actually had something I'd written used in an argument about that.
Oh,
This is early in my days on comic social media,
sure.
where Eric Larson went on a rant, like a
Ah,
screed,
yes.
about how Alan Moore ruined.
Mm-hmm.
He disrespected what was it, Len Wein?
Yes.
He disrespected what Wein did, and took it upon himself to just change this character for his own benefit. And I had written a piece about the reaction to the anatomy lesson for DCinThe80s.com. And in it, there was a letters page. It was Swamp Thing Volume 2, Number 6, where Len Wein writes a bit about how, hey, all that stuff I wrote toward the tail end of Volume 1 never happened. Don't worry about it.
Uh huh.
It's that didn't happen. And this is even before Alan Moore came on. This was Pascal
Yeah.
or Pasco. So he said that disregard the brother, disregard the shifting back and forth, disregard all this stuff. And and I think it was Michael Fife or Mike. I don't know how to say his name. Fife. He's a he's an indie comics artist. I think he's done some stuff for Marvel and DC as well. But he sent Eric Larson my article about how Alan Moore didn't, just go behind Len Wein's back and disrespect him. And then Larson wrote back, "Well, he screwed up Marvel Man too." It's
Well,
like, okay.
the Alan Moore stuff that was volume two, right? And Pasco kicked off
Mhm.
volume two. That was when the movie was
Yeah,
coming out, so they were
the
trying to
movie was coming
yeah
out, so
do
he had
that in
the photo
conjunction.
cover. Yeah.
The end of volume one wasn't Ween anymore. It
Okay.
was it Michelini? I'm saying that wrong too. David Michelini.
Was it Michelini?
He was on for a
Huh.
couple issues
Okay.
towards the tail end there. So
Hmm.
honestly, off the top of my head, I'd have to not give a proper answer and go look. But so I'm gonna damn him for being the sloppy series killer.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know what Eric
But
Larson was all up in arms about, and I have a lot of respect for Eric
yeah,
Larson, you know.
me too. Me too.
Um, but Alan Moore, to his benefit, no, to our benefit, because what he created, it's almost like you said.
Mm-hmm.
Who is it that you mentioned that deserves? Oh, Joe Kelly deserves a little creator
Oh
credit on
yeah.
Deadpool, even though he didn't create the character, but
Mm-hmm.
he added so much to it. Well, in
Yeah.
that vein, Alan Moore would deserve the same thing. We'll call it the Bob
Oh,
Layton,
hundred
the
percent.
Bob Layton credit.
Yeah. Yes.
I created Iron Man. Um,
The Bob Layton
yeah,
Award.
there you go. But I mean, as far as setting the stage for what we have, and just really thinking outside the box and being so
Mm-hmm.
creative.
Oh yeah.
And I
Ridiculous.
know,
Yeah.
well, I was going to say for a fact, but you can't. The man's passed away, sadly. But if you talk to Len Wein now, or if you talked to him before his untimely demise, and said, because
Mm-hmm.
he was the editor on the Moore books, like, hey,
Yep.
what do you think about this? He's probably be like, I wish I came up with it. I wish I was the one who thought of that.
I'm sure.
Because it's
I'm
just
sure.
pure
Mm-hmm.
brilliance. Come on now.
It is. No,
So
it
that's
definitely
unfortunate.
is.
We brought up two
Yeah.
interactions with creators online, Nicieza and now Larson, who were gunning
Mm-hmm.
for our heads, man. Not great.
Yeah. We still haven't talked about chili dogs yet. Maybe
Maybe a little bit later, yeah.
maybe later. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
later. But with Chris's mention of Swamp Thing here, I think this is another interesting talking point we could put a pin in. He says it's an admitted hole in his comics
Mm.
knowledge. So, I mean, taking osmosis out of the equation here, I think that could be a fun topic to explore. Those on purpose holes in our like things that we just don't care about,
Mm-hmm.
things that we just don't want to do the research on because we just don't see
Sure.
we don't have any
That's a
interest in
good
it.
one.
So I think that could be something we could talk about at a future date. Now, back to Chris's email. He says, I cannot tell you how many times I've started watching a video on comics only to find myself yelling at the video presenter that he's wrong.
Ooh.
If I can recognize that their facts are wrong, it speaks to the low level of quality they put into their script. The more in-depth their research is, the higher the quality of their final product is. That's what drew me to Chris's on Infinite Earths. Chris's blog posts were always of the highest quality, and I could tell he did his homework to produce that level of quality. And then he introduced me to the Cosmic Treadmill with the Malvolio episode.
Ooh.
Malvolio is a good character. And I knew instantly that these guys were top tier, research intensive, high quality creators. I've never been let down by the quality of anything I've seen on Chris's on Infinite Earths or the Cosmic Treadmill, and that is why I'm watching the Bada Bin show. Well, that means a lot. That really means a lot. I am not good at accepting compliments, mostly because I think anytime I get one, I feel like I conned whoever is giving it to me into giving it to me. I think students of Psych 101 will know that as the imposter syndrome. um, it's just something that I deal with. The Malvolio episode. I mean, there's another topic we can do. Just characters that we thought should mean more to a certain family of titles or a certain rogues gallery that never got their due. Malvolio would be top tier for me in the Green Lantern universe for sure. Let's keep going here. Chris says Aparo is indeed my favorite Batman artist. His Batman from Batman and the Outsiders was my first exposure to Batman in comics. But if I had time to pick a number two, it would be Brayfogle. So good
Attaboy.
pick from Dave
Yeah, there we go.
for sure, for sure. Chris continues. I've always liked the design of Mr. Midzias Pitalik. I think that it's the tiny hat that has no chance of covering his bald spot. He's funny and timeless, sort of like Superman's Alfred E. Newman.
Huh.
So
That's a good
he
one.
does know some Matt.
Yeah.
Yeah, he does know some Matt. Which Mixie though? Because he's got a few different looks, huh?
Hey, just to clarify too, maybe there's someone new to the
Hmm.
show. He's referring to our last episode, which was chock full of goodness and
Oh
great
yeah.
questions to which he had just couldn't wait to respond with his
Mm-hmm,
opinion.
mm-hmm.
So maybe someone for the first time is like, "Why is he talking about this? Why is this emailer bringing this up?" Because we talked about it, and we want you to check out
Mm-hmm.
those old episodes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Chris continues. I thank you for reading my emails. Interacting with you reminds me of the old comics letters pages. I know Chris is fond of the letters pages, but I was wondering if either of you or anyone in the viewership has ever written a letter to a letters page. And if so, had it been published. Don't be surprised if you're reading a letters page in the first year of the McFarlane adjectiveless Spider-Man comic and see my name. Hmm.
Oh,
So you ever send a letter in,
yep,
Dave?
sure have.
You
Uh huh.
have?
And
Really? To which book
a couple
or
letters
books?
got printed.
Hmm.
I guess the last one I'll bring up first because it actually
Hmm.
was to the Punisher, talking about how much I loved the whole War Machine thing I brought up earlier as just being a
Hmm.
great twist.
Sure.
So that saw print, and then there was a magazine called Right Now, which
Oh
Right
yes.
Now Mag,
Tomorrow's, right?
Tomorrow's, and they had
Mm-hmm.
done an
Mm-hmm.
issue on Bruce Jones and his Hulk run, and I
Mm-hmm.
wrote in about that, and they put that in the back pages as well. So yes, my yep.
Neat.
So those are two times my letters got published. I did bring up last episode when I was talking about Matt that I sent in a submission to
Hmm.
William Gaines and Mad, and they've got some cool stuff. But that was not again what he's specifically asking for
Sure. Sure.
as far as my name in the back of a comic book.
Hmm.
So yeah, how about you, bud?
I have never written a letter to a comic because I don't think I have anything valuable to say.
You son of a gun.
Which I mean is, I mean, I understand what I'm doing right now,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think I can add anything to a conversation. So I wouldn't want to waste anybody's time. So no, I never wrote in. I regret not writing in, but
Mm-hmm. It's not too late.
never did. I think it's too
No,
late.
it's not too late. I remember Captain America was begging for someone to write in, and they finally got their letters page. It was like issue 7 or something that people were starting to email them or whatever, send them
Be
messages.
like,
Yeah,
thank you for hiring the guy who wrote the worst Superman story
this is
ever.
why you can't have a letters in the
I
segment in the
know,
letters page. This is why you can't do.
I
No,
know.
actually, you should. I want to see if they'll print it. You know what? Do that.
Oh, if Marv Wolfman is the editor, they
Yeah,
might.
just pick it out of a pile.
Um, yep, just a top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Chris continues. He says, "Put me down as a yes for a continuing feature called Chris's Comics Ephemera." And we like Sharon, so yes, there will be more show and tell. And finally, I want to hear that chili dog story.
Oh, maybe later.
Yeah, because that one might go long.
Yeah, that might
So
take up some time. So
it very
we'll
well
see where
might.
we're at a little bit later in this program, and maybe we'll chili dog it up. Because it's a good
Yeah,
story. It's a
yeah.
great story. It's one of my favorite stories.
It, it's a heartbreaking story.
Hey, it's your story, and it deserves to be told. So let's yeah, we'll get into that maybe a little bit later.
Yeah. We do have one more
Mm.
email from our friend Billy D.
Hey, Billy.
And Billy D says, "Hey guys, Billy D here, just chiming in with a few thoughts about the latest at the time of this email show. One, it's numbered. I love numbered emails. Uh, it's what drew me to the letters pages in the first place. Those numbered questions and the numbered answers to follow. Love it. One, as far as the idea of thinking you've read something only to read it and find out you hadn't scenario, I've got thoughts. First, for me, as far as DC Comics goes, I didn't really get heavily into reading DC until 10 or 15 years ago. But before that, I was a huge fan of their animated shows and movies. Sometimes I feel as though I've read a story, but in reality, I'd just seen an adaptation on TV. Another point, which you guys did discuss, was listening to podcasts that talk about certain stories. And yeah, that's a lot of that osmosis stuff there. I'm sure my boner over hard traveling heroes, right? Like I swore I read it
Yeah.
and I didn't. I'm sure I probably got the beats of it from a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I don't watch. I mean, we're doing a comics video now. I don't ever watch comics videos. I just can't make myself do it. But I do. I used to listen to podcasts. I don't really do that anymore either. But I used to, and I'm sure it was in a podcast where I learned pretty much everything about hard traveling heroes. Two from Billy.
Uh-huh.
The next point is rereading old comics versus new or modern. Chris says he has a hard time reading the older stories because it makes him think of how the newer books and their lackluster execution. It's the exact opposite for me. I soured on new comics around 10 years ago, mostly because of the cost, but reading older comics makes me realize even more that newer books just aren't aimed at me. And that's fine. I'll just read back issues till I'm dead. It's a good way to
Yeah.
be. It's a good way to be. It's a healthy way to be.
Sure.
Unfortunately, I'm not good nor healthy. So I it's again, I say it all the time. I understand it. I just can't make myself believe it. Um, Not that everything needs to be aimed at me, because certainly things don't. Um, I'm of a certain age now where even the things that appealed to me back in the day don't appeal to me anymore. So we all change, we all evolve, or devolve
Mm-hmm.
in my case, I guess. But yeah, I wish I could get past it. I really, really do. I guess maybe it'll take a lot of faking it till I make
There
it.
you go, man.
Who
We're gonna have a
knows?
breakthrough one of these days.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be another that'll be another topic. It'll be another segment, a recurring segment. Fake it till you
There you
make it.
go.
Now, point three from Billy: podcasts in general. There are a couple that when I listen to them, I take what they say as gospel because when I've checked on their work, they were spot on. The Cosmic Treadmill is the gold standard for me. Chris and Reggie, and still Chris, always did their homework and made doubly sure what they were saying was extremely accurate. Plus, the show was entertaining as hell. Well, that means a lot. That really, really does. The Cosmic Treadmill and Weird Comics history, like, I tend to over romanticize things, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So, to me, I mean, that was the show that I always wanted to listen to. And the fact that I got to be a part of it is a blessing. Um, but to hear other people say similar things about it just blows me away. I can't even believe it. That's really amazing. Um, and we talked, I think we talked either last episode or the one before that about the whole osmosis thing and how people get facts wrong. And one of the things I brought up was seduction of the innocent, where everybody has it in their head that they know the story, front and back and forth, the whole thing, and they don't. Um, and how you can get so stuck in the narrative that you hear over and over again that as I was reading Seduction of the Innocent, I was like, well, this isn't right. Like I was questioning the actual source material, like the actual book. I'm like, well, that's not how I heard it. It's like, no, you're reading it right now, idiot. This is it. There is no analysis. There's no editorializing. This is the facts right here. This is exactly what this man said because this is what he's saying right now. It's weird, it was there was a bit of a disconnect in trying to keep to accuracy because so many things we hear wrong that when you're actually exposed to the source, your knee jerk reaction is like, that's not right.
Yep. I hear you.
It's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Billy says, of Denny O'Neil, I put off reading Hard Traveling Heroes for one reason. It seems very slanted to one point of view. Now, we're not going to go too deep. We don't want to do politics here. Politics are not what this show is ever about. But broadly speaking, it's true. I mean, Hard Traveling Heroes is told in a slanted way, to the point where I think whether you agree or disagree with that slant, it's still a little much. You know, it's very unsubtle. Maybe that's the best way to say it.
Okay.
I don't know your thoughts on it. It's I don't think that's the reason why I don't care for it. It's just not for me.
I think
You know,
hindsight's always 2022. With okay, so
of
you can look
course,
back on the '60s and realize they're very politically charged and fueled time,
of course.
and so there's a pack of children running outside trying to interrupt my sentiment. Damn you kids, get
Mm-hmm.
off my
Mm-hmm.
lawn. So yeah, that being in the rearview mirror, you can say, all right, well maybe it demanded a strong point of view. Now
Mm-hmm.
that we have that perspective, but when we're in the
And
moment,
also the readership was younger
mm-hmm,
too,
sure, and
right? I mean, it wasn't 40, 50-year-olds getting their political viewpoints from Ollie Queen.
no,
These were largely, young kids, teenagers,
yeah,
people who haven't been exposed to real life yet.
and when you're in the moment, it's kind of harder to touch things or talk about things. It's more of a
Of course.
a sticky situation, hot topic,
Yeah, and it still
and
is.
you're afraid of offending someone, hurting someone's
Hmm.
feelings, or just basically it's much like the discourse we talked about comics. We're not going to change anyone's mind. No one's
No, certainly not.
so. Yeah, I mean,
No, in arguing, we just ingrain ourselves in our own positions anyway.
right.
So it's like that's It's pointless, futile.
Was the leanings of any comic necessary? That's going to be up to you as a reader. It's
Of
much like with
course,
the
yeah. I
canon
mean,
that we talk about and everything else. That's
hmm
entirely up to you.
of course, of course. So yeah, Hard Traveling Heroes was definitely something of its day.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to some people about it way back in the day when I still was convinced that I'd read it and hadn't, um, just to see about how shocking it was, because it was very, very different
Mm-hmm.
for the time, especially for DC, which had been playing very, very safe. So I've heard that it definitely did strike a chord. It definitely did change it changed the tone and tenor of the way some books were told. So it's definitely important. I I don't have any problem with any of the leanings in it necessarily. You take what you want, you don't take what you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean that comes through to this very day, and even before Hard Traveling Heroes. So kind of just is something we get with fiction. Everything is kind of influenced by when it comes out, good, bad, and different. So kind of just is what it is, and yeah, I figure that's probably as deep as we want to go on that one.
Yeah, sure.
Um, Yes, I mean, there's no reason to go any deeper. Billy wraps up with, "Well, I got to get back to pretending to work, but keep up the fun shows, and hopefully one of these days I can jump on a live show and interact with you guys live."
Well,
Well, hopefully you
I have a
can.
solution for him. Why don't we get Bret Hart
Hmm.
to call in for Billy D,
Call in sick.
and then he can
Call
just
in
sit
sick.
home and have some chicken soup, some ginger ale. Actually, he'd
I
need that if he
think
was
so.
really sick. So let's make it more fun. He can have a ice cream sundae
Of
and
course, of
throw in some
course.
Girls Gone Wild videos.
Yeah, some chicken critters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. Some chicken croquettes, and then he
hmm
can watch us do our thing live. You know,
There you
but
go.
that's the best thing, man. We're around 24/7. Once we're done, this thing gets published on the YouTube channel, and we are there
hmm
whenever you need us. Okay.
hmm
In response to his
We're here to please.
indeed his email, real quick, we had mentioned, or you had mentioned, that you don't watch comic vids. I think
hmm
as an advertising ploy for the Bada Bin show, we should tag ourselves as the comic video for those who do not watch comic videos.
There we go. We're looking for fan four
Mm.
of of
There you
comic
go.
video people here
Yes.
for
Yep,
sure. No,
indeed.
I I feel like most content is clickbaity, but comic videos I just can't do.
Okay.
Just can't do it.
Well, you star in one. Congratulations. You did it. Here you are.
I know.
Wonderful. So, yeah. All right. So that's it for the emails this time, right?
That's
I
emails.
want
That's
more.
emails.
I
hmm
want
hmm
more. So
Feed us more.
feed me, Seymour. Get some more emails sent our
hmm
way. Badabinshow@gmail.com. And if you're
Absolutely.
uncomfortable with emails, if for some reason emails just burned you in the past and you're terrified of them and there's some kind of traumatic event in your life with Gmail, feel free to hop on Instagram, DM me,
There you go.
slide into my
hmm
DMs, which sounds so terrible coming out of my mouth. I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah. Yeah. You should just say floppy
Oh,
instead.
Jesus Christ. Now I need a shower.
Yeah. Or,
You know what?
or maybe go to Arby's and say
This
floppy.
is enough, Chris. Enough is enough.
hmm
I feel
Enough is
filthy. You know
enough.
what? We're getting out
hmm
of here. That does it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
unfortunately, I
Okay.
don't think, because you've made me feel so icky and gross, and with the time the show is going on already, we're going to have to postpone the chili dog story.
We would. Oh
Yeah,
man,
so next time,
that's going to be our carrot on a stick
yeah,
forever.
I think we'll have
It'll
to.
be 2028, and it's like next week,
It,
chili dog.
but usually that kind of stuff gets left unsaid, so you just spoiled it. You ruined it. You're like, we're going to keep
So
teasing it.
a peek behind the screen. A peek behind the
Yeah,
screen.
pay no attention to the chili dog behind the curtain.
Yeah, and don't smell it
Well,
either.
that's also an Urban Dictionary. Feel free to look it up. And then, yeah,
Hmm.
definitely delete your browser history after that. All right.
Yeah, take your fandom directory off the shelf.
There you go. Well, Chris, I think that's a wrap. I think that's enough. And now
Yeah,
you are going on vacation starting tomorrow.
I am
So I
tomorrow.
want you to have a safe and happy trip. And I hope you hit up some awesome comic haunts and find some really
Now,
cool
I've been
stuff.
asking
Yeah.
around. Yeah,
You got some
I've
good
been asking
tips?
around. So hopefully, I got a few tips. I don't know if they're good or not, but
Mm,
I got some tips. So we will see.
okay.
We will see.
Take some videos, record your
Mm,
travels. We all want to see them and
yeah.
experience them vicariously,
Word.
you know. And do you have a budget, a hunting budget?
No.
Okay, awesome. That's what I love to hear.
No.
You're like, if I see it, I
It's just
want it. I'm buying it, baby.
sky
There
high.
you go.
It's yeah.
It's
We're going to the
it's
moon.
off the
Mm-hmm.
charts. All right. Well, yet again, I hope you have a great vacation.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank everybody who tuned in today or who will tune in the future.
Time
Yes, for
travelers.
taking the time to enjoy our humble little program. Hopefully, we did, in fact, entertain you. And we definitely, yet again, want to hear from you. So
Absolutely.
that would be just outstanding stuff. Uh, Chris, you got anything else you'd like to say to the masses?
No, no. I think we're good.
All right, then we're out of here. Thanks a bunch. See you later. Adios, amigos.
See ya.